So, I know we said we wanted to do one of these, a new theme song every time, but I'm going to play the same one that we did, except this time it'll be
That's fine.
a half step up because, I don't know. I drank a lot of that juice pretty quick.
It's coming back to haunt you.
It was all ginger, too.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't ginseng.
Take your time.
It's a podcast from Steam Powered Giraffe. It's the Bennettarium with special guest Aleigha Rhoads on the podcast. It's the Bennettarium.
Oh, yeah.
Bunny is out of town and Chelsea's taking her place. Okay, well, anyway. So I'll put that here because that's the only
I
time
couldn't
we use
remember
the
if you said everyone's names or not, and I was like, and...
It's a little different every time.
Yeah. Keeping things fresh.
I enjoy the winging it.
Okay, well, welcome to the Bennettarium podcast, everyone.
Episode 5, 6, I don't know.
This is episode 5.
Okay.
Let's introduce who we are, just in case this is the first podcast that someone is listening to. The one talking right now, my name is David Michael Bennett, and I play the Spine in Steam Powered Giraffe. And this is also the podcast that I came up with my identical twin, Bunny, Isabella Bunny Bennett, who plays Rabbit in the group. However, Bunny is out of town, so we've got
Chelsea Penyak. I'm kind of on and off. I'm like a third guest that they bring on every once in a while. My name is Chelsea. I work with Steam Powered Giraffe. I'm a Walter worker, so I perform on stage and I do merchandise for the band. I'm filling in for Bunny today. Yeah.
And our guest is
Aleigha! Woo! Yeah, I'm a friend of these guys, and I hang out.
Good to have you. Good to have you.
Thank you.
I don't have a character voice. I'm like, I'm Chelsea Penyak.
I play the... Because you're not talking on stage.
I'm mute. No, I don't think it's like, I always tell that story. Like, I just assumed that the Walter Worker characters were mute on purpose until like my first Christmas show, the Yulemas show. We were like, me and Camille were in the audience with a microphone, like asking people questions.
Oh yeah.
And we like weren't talking. We were just bringing the mic up to people. And like we went back afterwards. We were backstage, and Steve's like, you can talk to them, you know. And I was like, oh, I thought we were like supposed to be mute or whatever. Like,
I suppose, yeah. It wasn't. It's just that we don't have microphones on you.
Yeah, but I don't mind that because I grew up. I'm a ballet dancer. I'm not used to using my voice anyway, so I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know what this podcast is about, it's basically we kind of talk about Steam Powered Giraffe a little bit. We'll always talk about what's the upcoming shows and stuff, but it's more of a way to hang out with us like a fly on the wall. I mean, like most podcasts. So where we talk about everything, and we have to briefly mention the elephant in the room, which I think if you're listening to this in real time, or at least within a few days after it's posted, or a few weeks after it's posted, we had an election. And
U.S. election.
Yeah.
All you international listeners out there.
And I'm sure you're already aware of all of that if you happen to pay attention to the news or the internet. And while maybe we'll talk about some of that stuff in the future, I think we need a break from it.
Yeah.
Because it's just so much.
It's fresh in everyone's minds. We felt it was worth mentioning right off the bat just because it's literally all anyone's talking about in the U.S. You know, I listened to podcasts that came out this week, and that's what they talk about. Everyone's talking about it. So we felt like we had to briefly touch on it, like, yes, it happened, but we're not going to talk about that today.
Because we have a guest who potentially has some cool things to talk about that we wouldn't normally talk about. We might not mention VR. Ah, crap. This stream, we just did. But yeah. So maybe we won't talk about cell phones, video games, technology.
We need to have like a VR penalty jar where you like put money in it every time VR is mentioned.
I just played VR today, actually. And I'd be a little just testing out Elite Dangerous. So.
Well, anyway, I'm excited to hear more about what you do, because if I know correctly, you are into, what is it?
Biotech.
Biotechnology.
Yeah, my degree is biological technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find that very interesting, and I don't know much about that.
I can tell you lots.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's delve into that.
So-
I'm sure all the folks here are tired of us talking about VR and iPhones and video games.
Yeah.
So this will be a nice refresher, right?
So you have a degree,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I'm like this close to getting my second degree, but it's one of those things that's like, I kind of just gave up and moved out here. Well, not really gave up, I escaped. Yeah. No, I don't know. But I like to think that I have a magical talent of being able to take really smart things, put them into Jelly Bean and Pac-Man terms, and then everyone can understand.
Yeah, I can see that. The few conversations we've had.
Yeah.
So what's on the forefront of biotechnology these days?
CRISPR, actually.
CRISPR.
See,
Yeah.
we're already
ignorant.
lost and eager to learn.
Stupid.
Now, well, in like the biotech world, it's old, but I mean, it's one of those things that are super fascinating. It's pretty much you can take DNA with this. Well, I'm gonna have to give you guys a lesson first.
Okay, sure.
We're ready.
How like DNA works pretty much is it's a set of instructions in a zipper.
Sure.
And, it's all like twisted up, the typical like DNA double helix looking
The
thing.
Yeah.
dionucleic
What?
Yep.
acid, right?
Deoxyribose.
What does the DNA stand for? Isn't that like?
Yeah, deoxyribose nucleic acid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, deoxyribose is the D,
Ah.
which means that there's two ribose. Ribose is actually a sugar that is in the DNA chain. And, when there's one, it's RNA, ribose nucleic acid.
I remember some of this from my high school biology course,
I mean, I went
just
to-
enough to know understand what you're talking
I had
about.
I had to take biology in college, but that was quite a while ago.
Yes.
Many moons ago.
Well, long story short, CRISPR, you can pretty much just like, it's a little thing that will, you can like write DNA, which
Okay.
we haven't been able to really do.
Wow.
Yeah, and the person that actually discovered it is actually advocating for people not to use it because of the potential like god awfulness that could happen.
That sounds smart.
But at the same time, like it's a straight up cure for cancer too.
Yeah.
Because you can go in, fix what needs to be fixed on a genetic level, which is huge, and then you're fixed.
Yeah.
Because there's diseases out there like viruses that actually cause cancer.
Right.
Because they do this weird and crazy thing where I don't know why or how they take a chunk of your chromosome and like move it to another spot, and it just happens to be behind a spot that's like, oh, we need to make stuff, and it doesn't ever turn off because goes into a different
Cancer.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
healthy stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
So what for the moral implications of it? How do you feel about it? Like if we somehow start making things that come out and it's like kill me, like would that be? No, that's not going to happen because babies can't talk. But like if that,
sorry.
if that is that, how do you feel about all that? Like, should we play God?
Well, there.
I'm sure that's a loaded question.
I'm all for it. Yes. Yes, let's do it.
Well,
The only way we
I
can.
think
The only way we can.
responsibility is
Yeah.
key.
But we're human. We don't have responsibility.
No, and I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think we're mature enough either as
Sure.
a society, let alone a species, to
Oh, yeah.
even have this kind of power. But at the same time,
Oh, sorry. I'm just testing the
oh
stream.
yes, the stream sounds good.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, I would say that it's like at the same time, I still would be an advocate of pushing forward towards anything.
I think anything that's gonna like help people, like health-wise and everything, should definitely be like go for it.
Yeah.
The problem with like science experiments is that you have a lot of horrible failures before you have anything good come of
Yeah.
it, and that's the hard part. The whole playing God thing, like I want to make Pokemon for a living, so I'm okay with that, and I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, you can do that. I mean, like they're not gonna have the magical powers of stuff, but
we already have dog breeds that shouldn't exist. Like all of them, pretty much.
Chihuahuas.
Like a lot of them. Like they're not meant for this earth, and they have health problems, and like it doesn't seem that far fetched, to start like, well, and how about we make a long-legged dachshund? One the Conan clip.
The really
Just
tall
they
dog.
wheel it out and it just looks terrified the entire time.
I just feel so bad for that poor dog.
It's not even just like on stilts, like they have it trapped.
It's
like,
encased. It's just encased in this thing, and he's like petting it. It's like,
But yeah, like, or like, making a Pomeranian blue, like.
like that's the stuff I want to do,
That's cool.
Yeah, like I want to take one of those dengue mice and then give it the rosy cheeks like a Pikachu has.
I mean, there's ethical questions, sure. But we don't have answers for those. No, and we won't. But we'll have blue dogs.
Yeah, well, it's a personal thing.
Is there anything unethical about a blue dog if it doesn't
would
know
it
it's blue or doesn't care?
It's not like you could just inject something into a regular dog and suddenly it'll be blue. It's that you have to raise it from an embryo
you have to create it.
Yeah, you have to create it. So at that point, it's like you're not harming something that isn't already living because it doesn't have a choice. You're creating life. So.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing if you're a dog breeder. You're creating life.
Yeah.
And I mean,
because that's not natural.
What is like pugs and pit bulls? Or not pit bulls, but bulldogs. They can't. They have
bulldogs.
Breathing issues and stuff.
They're actually, because I used to want to be a dog groomer and I worked with dogs for many years. Their skull for bulldogs, it's actually called brachycephalic.
Yeah.
They can't give birth. They all have to be C-sectioned because of their head.
That makes a lot of sense, and I never thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, why? Unless you're a breeder, why would you think about it? Like,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Look at a bulldog; it's very unnatural. Like
Yeah.
that thing wouldn't survive in the wild, natural birth.
No, but like they all have to be C-sectioned pretty much. So
Jeez.
yeah, so it's one of those things. Like all brachycephalic dogs that have that big, like, square boxed head that is, the size of their body. They can't give natural birth, and that's weird.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're talking about playing God, I think that's a thing to look at.
Sure.
But, there's so many people that have so many different facets on things. Like, people are people, and that's what it's going to boil down to.
Yeah, I mean, because the dog breeding could be seen as unethical, and I know there's people out there who would think that. I mean, it is, but I don't think it's too. It's not that much different than altering the DNA yourself.
Human history is so long
A designer
and
dog.
so complex.
Like designer pets. That's like exactly what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, you want to have a cat with blue eyes or whatever.
And unfortunately, like, you make a cat like with blue fur, and maybe it does, turn their skin inside out.
Well, unfortunately, that's part of the experimental process.
And is that wrong? Like, for that animal to come into existence, sure. But at a certain point, like, won't we have to do that to get to the point where we can literally run a simulation of it and know the bad outcomes before we make the bad outcomes?
That's true.
Because once you know enough factors, you're like, oh, we can't go down that road because, like, we can make it this much blue, but if we make it this much blue, then its eyeballs appear outside of its body, right?
There's not, at least, from when I was in school, there's not a supercomputer strong enough to.
Not yet.
Once
they start figuring out the what's that thing that they proved that it was impossible, the super, like, it's not like a microprocessor, it's like the smallest form of, like, computing power that.
Oh.
What was it? They're talking
Are you
about.
talking about the organic?
No, it was like how.
Are you talking about that one where they're talking about simulating a universe?
Something like that, where basically, like, because this processor can't exist.
Yeah.
What was it? What
It's something about the complexity of a computer processor. Like, you can't create a computer with more processing power than the computer it's already in, which is our universe. Like, every time you create a universe within a universe, the processing power diminishes.
It was
something like that.
With
all I can think of
what's
is
the
the Rick
smallest
and Morty
particle?
episode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was. We were listening to this episode of Star Talk about the whole quantum physics theory about our universe being a simulation. And yeah, I think I even turned to you and said, I'm just thinking of that Rick and Morty episode.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they were on about.
Yep.
In that each one becomes more simplistic.
Yep. Yeah, there's there's so many, like, say that we like get rid of variables, you know, there's, for a computer to go through to know, I mean, we can figure out every single strand of, you know, DNA, and each DNA makes a codon, and each codon makes an amino acid, and the amino acid's gone to make proteins, and it has to know all of that for everything. And then also, you know, when making the amino acids to make a protein, they're like positively and negatively charged, which is how they fold in the specific ways that they do. So it's, you know, it has to take that into account, and then it has to take into account, you know, like if we're throwing something unknown into it, then it has to take all the unknown variables of what might happen, and then like put all of that through the process of not only just a single living cell, but an entire organism, which has a bajillion of cells.
Yeah.
And then, you know, where that's not including like random mutations or anything like that.
Complex stuff.
Yes.
We'll have a computer eventually like that.
Yeah.
Man, what is the word for it that they still haven't proved that is possible? What's the smallest
know.
particle? What is that called?
Atom?
No, it's something.
Quarks?
No, smaller than an atom.
Quarks are smaller than atoms, right?
Is this, what
I
was
think
the,
a quark makes.
what's the
up
thing
to
where
a
it can exist in
proton.
multiple locations at a time?
I think those are quarks.
What are those called?
Wimps and machos?
When I hear it, I'll know. Like, yeah, that's what they were talking about.
Well, there's neutrons.
Because it's like a something computer. It's a, but I can't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, but
But at any
I
rate,
know what you're talking
Not-
about.
We're
It's like
not
it's like
claiming
it's
to
like
be
the
scientists
it's like
here.
making ones and zeros with the most smallest particles
Okay.
ever. So therefore you get a.
There was the organic memory chip where they took proteins, and the proteins, what they did is they like zapped it with light, and it would make it fold or unfold, and they would use that as a 1 or a 0 kind of thing, the folded and unfolded protein, and that was supposed to hold like a ridiculous amount of information.
Damn.
So I don't know.
Eventually we're gonna get something,
Yeah.
or they'll rethink how a computer works, and you
How far
know,
off do you think that is?
as
Well-
long as we're still democracy and there's free market, I'm sure 2 years. Because I mean everything. I mean you just have to look at the speed of
Well,
how
technology's
things are.
exploded
Yeah.
exponentially.
Yeah.
I mean it's just gonna get. I mean
Look at
year to
100
year.
years
like,
ago.
yeah.
It's snowballed, and its momentum or inertia or whatever that word is, like
Yep.
keeps increasing, technology-wise. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean
look
virtual
at where
reality.
we were. Look at where we were in the 50s, and
We didn't have virtual
I feel
reality.
like it was after the Industrial Revolution. You know, I don't know when the whole computer age started, but it's like ever since then, the technology has just gotten increasingly faster and better, and
Yep.
it's kind of scary. It's like, I don't know.
And a lot of that has to do with the space program, in all
Yeah.
honesty. And was it you I was talking to about that?
Uh,
About like, yeah, I think it was. I think like because you can't take, you know, a Mark III computer that takes up a living room. You can't shoot that up into space. So you have to
Yeah.
make stuff tiny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were
Yeah.
talking about that. Yeah, that's why NASA basically invented the smartphone, basically. But quantum computing. Someone in the chat said quantum computing.
Oh,
Yeah.
we have a chat.
Yeah. It's
I-
not working very well. I don't think our servers can handle the chat.
I had it
Yeah.
open.
Unfortunately, but whatever. Anyways, quantum computing.
it's kinda
So they
working.
can't. That it's not
Quantum
possible yet. They haven't figured out how to make it yet.
Quarks and leptons are the smallest. I don't want to spend the whole stream in the chat, but it is.
Yeah. That's
It
why.
is
That's
fun
why I
seeing what
don't.
people are saying.
Informational.
Yeah.
That's why I don't look at the chat because we want to keep the conversation here
Yeah.
between
This
us.
is so fascinating. I love science. Okay, see, I could spend the
Hooray.
whole chat I could spend the whole podcast
Yeah,
just
yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the chat, but yeah.
But that's why we took
Okay.
the chat off in the first place.
I'm just gonna.
But now the reason not to have the chat on the Engineer-eteers site is because the servers can't handle it, and it keeps it keeps being like too many requests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Anyways.
did see a comment on there that I would love to touch on, but
Yeah.
Sure. What? I mean,
Okay.
Yeah,
since you've already
that's
looked.
also why the
but
chat
now
is
you can
good.
shut
It's
up.
because it helps bring up more topics of conversation.
We'll take questions later, like through Twitter
Yeah.
and stuff. But for now,
yeah, someone said selective dog breeding affects, what is it, the evolutionary thing, not the genetic code.
Oh yeah.
And I could dive into that for hours.
well, yeah. I mean, one of the first conversations we had was like about evolution.
Yeah, and yeah, I have my own theory of evolution, and that's why.
But maybe it would behoove the listeners to know what the regular evolution
Sure,
is
compare and contrast.
before throwing a wrench into it all.
Well, it depends who you talk to, in all honesty. There's many different theories of evolution, and what most people look at is Darwinism.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, where if you actually take the time to read the book of The Origin of Species, he doesn't talk about evolution whatsoever.
Right.
So it depends, again, who you talk to. It's the interpretation of people. Because the traditional idea of evolution is that we've been here for bajillions of years, and we started from one single cell organism, and we've gone through all these years of just mishaps and like random mutations and stuff like that. And it's, like, oh, there was a mistake that happened, and it just happened to turn out good. Or if it turned out bad, everything would die, so the good mutation would stick around.
Yeah, survival of the fittest, that whole kind of thing.
And like that makes sense. I understand that.
What's the breeding? I mean, it's the same thing with dog breeds, right? That kind of shows how evolution potentially happens.
Yes and no, because domestication is a very strange thing. There was this thing I was watching with foxes. Foxes can be domesticated really easily, and for some weird reason, when they get domesticated, the color patterns on their coats change. Like, they don't stay the traditional fox color. They like start getting spots and stuff like that. They start getting randomized, and I haven't looked up this stuff in years, so this could be all old information, but it's one of those things of, that's weird.
Yeah.
Is that due to inbreeding at all?
I do not believe inbreeding was a significant factor in that documentary that I watched.
Because I always figured that, when you're creating a new dog breed or something, inbreeding is inevitable.
For breeding to get a specific trait that you want, inbreeding is done to accentuate that specific trait. So if you're creating a new dog breed, it's one of those things of you're going to have to inbreed because of those traits.
Right.
And again, this is all just so controversial sometimes.
Potentially the fox, maybe something triggers when it's domesticated, so its offspring, due to what if it's as simple as like it's less stressed, or it doesn't have the fight or flight mentality anymore because it's just getting all its food naturally, so maybe that changes some chemical in the body, so when it does have offspring, like that, it's the DNA that it's giving it is different. So
because it doesn't need to have like its traditional colors for hiding or hunting or anything like that.
That's what I was going to say.
So, but it's one of those things of, my whole theory is, it's the environmental outside triggers that always cause the genetic code to turn on or off, not necessarily change.
Sure. So what you're saying is potentially a fox has a grab bag of different things. Like maybe there's foxes that have, this is stupid, but 2 tails. And maybe use
we
them
can go with that.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, exactly.
And potentially it's not that, the fox is going to gain an extra. I know this is stupid. I'm just like making an example.
No, go ahead.
If the fox grows a next extra tail, and it's due to evolution, it's not because it's gaining it. It's because it has the gene in itself already to turn on that extra tail.
Yeah.
And that's what you're not arguing against, but that's what your theory is that the normal one is that the DNA changes to adapt to the environment, but yours is that the environment tells the DNA what to turn on and off, what's already there.
Yeah, we already have all the instructions because, again, depending on who you talk to, we're like 60 to 80% identical genome to a banana.
Sure, yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's a banana.
But that banana, if you put it in a car, it will grow arms and legs because the environment is dictating what to turn on. It's going to turn on those car driving abilities.
Oh, absolutely. And then, it's going to have the, sunglasses of deal with it.
Is that your favorite meme? Because we had this question in the other podcast.
And I didn't even answer. I was like, there's too many out there. I can't think of a favorite meme.
Mine is the Ermagerd.
Ermagerd.
Is that like a dog or something?
Well, there was
yeah,
the dog where it was like Ermagerd, Merkburns, and
that one.
then what took off, I believe. Again, I'm not looking.
You talk about memes and science in the same tone of
Meme
voice. It's very
historian.
interesting.
I don't realize I have a tone.
Well, yeah, I always thought it originated from the girl with the goosebumps.
Yeah. But I remember.
But is that just what made it popular?
I think that's what it was. Yeah, but I love.
The first one was something else.
I think it. Yeah, and then there was the one with the bunny, and it was Ermagerd Kurtz.
I never saw that one.
Oh yeah, there's
Probably tons now. Yeah.
Wait, my favorite was the horse.
the horse.
Okay.
What was the horse?
Wait, you guys keep talking about science. I'm gonna find my favorite Ermagerd meme.
Okay, so with that said, I maybe if you're any of the listeners or viewers right now, if you're watching this on the live stream, so if you understand the evolution stuff, basically
I found
is
it.
that we came from.
It's so happy.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
Anyway,
You're not allowed to see.
So if you understand like evolution is basically like, we all. What's the simplest way for me to say it is like everyone started out in the ocean as a small little particle, and or a little organism, and then we all grew up and turned into birds or humans or apes, and there's different lineages that go back to like,
Yeah.
we somewhere we split off from apes and stuff, and.
Well, I also
Yeah.
believe that there's like,
But with your theory, what I want to know is if that's the case, does that mean the DNA for life has every possibility already in it? Is that what you're trying to say? Because you're saying that the DNA doesn't change? I mean, DNA changes, obviously, turning on and off stuff. But knowing how much there is, it doesn't seem like there's an infinite amount of stuff. Does that mean DNA has to grow or shrink?
Well, I believe that there's a limit because, we're in a closed ecosystem of Earth kind of thing. So there's a limit because, we're all on Earth. We all have our, everything that is pretty much a critter breathes oxygen, exhales carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
Like all mammals pretty much have 2 arms, 5 toes, a head, shoulder, like it's all the same basic shape for mammals kind of
Sure,
thing.
even whales is like they got fingers and they don't need them.
Yeah, and they got their little hip bones in some of them and all that weird stuff. And we're totally discounting the platypus because that's a monotreme. I love platypi, by the way. I can tell you all about platypi.
We'll get to pies later, but for now, the platypus is we'll talk about that.
Okay. See, I can just go everywhere. And I gotta keep on track.
Because that's interesting. If the environment is because that's evolution that we can see within a few decades if you're domesticating a fox, or within like 100 years or so, right? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Definitely, within a few generations.
Yeah. And that kind of makes sense because that's as quick as something could evolve, quote unquote. Which is sorry, I should just.
Is that a pick?
playing
It
with
is.
a pick.
I don't blame you. I stuff to play with you.
Yeah, I always have.
Yeah,
hands.
well, the whole thing with Darwin, and a famous example is Darwin's finches in the Galapagos Islands. He had the theory of it was more adaptation, which I totally agree with. And that whole thing is, this specific species of finch, they were flying around and like a hurricane happened and they blew them all to different islands. And the Galapagos Islands, they're very significant that like each individual island has kind of its own little thing going on.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, kind of.
Aren't those like iguanas really famous for being is that
Yes, I believe
Galapagos
so.
or is that the tortoise? I don't know.
I don't know.
Galapagos is famous for like a
There's
giant
a
tortoise.
Yep,
I
and
think.
yeah, it's like 108 years old or something ridiculous. Yeah.
But yeah.
But sorry.
I was gonna say. So what happened when the finches all spread to the different islands?
When they got to the different islands, what Darwin noticed is that their beaks had to change shape, or they did change shape. And, it's just an observation that he made, and it was, they changed shape to adapt to the different types of food that they have to eat. And my idea is that had to happen within a generation or two, because if it took hundreds of billions of years for that to happen,
it would die.
Yeah, it's going to have a problem eating food, so it's going to struggle for a really long time, and anything in, the wild that is struggling is not going to make it. So it's one of those things that I believe the information was already there. And the bird was like, oh, this is a type of food that we can eat, so we're going to work on eating this food.
Yeah.
And because of the environmental triggers, which I don't know what causes them to turn on and off inside the body or whatever, that, in order to break through this kind of nut, it needs this shaped beak. So for the next generation or two, that was turned on, and then it was able to go, oh yeah, this is totally awesome, and it kept it. But because, and each one has their own different things.
But but unfortunately, we don't. There's no examples of these finches within a few generations. Their beaks changing, right?
Correct.
So that's where it's kind of like how, because otherwise then you'd kind of know, because right now, as it stands, the evolution of it taking a long ass time is kind of the one that's an easy one to default to, like, okay, that's probably what happens until something else is further proven, right?
Yeah, but the reason why I think, it would have to take forever for that to happen because, the common theory is when your DNA is replicating, that's when you're going to have the mistakes that happen and that carries through.
Well, a natural selection, right? That's kind of how the basis for a lot of evolution of, like, why giraffes have long necks is because the giraffes who had shorter necks didn't live out as long. So the ones with longer necks, slightly longer necks, survived and bred. So therefore, now giraffes have long necks. That's kind of the idea.
That's kind of.
Because they needed long necks to get to their food, and the ones that couldn't get to the food, therefore the ones that had the.
But it's not because they were stretching their necks.
No, it's because when you roll the dice of giraffe babies, one of those might just have a slightly taller neck, right?
Yeah.
And that one survived because, or maybe just lived out to have more babies than the other ones, and now his offspring have his trait of, and that's essentially how evolution is supposed to work with natural selection, right?
Yeah, definitely, and I can see that, and the ones that do die off, their genes don't get passed on. But it's one of those things like, are you and your sister the same exact height?
No.
Exactly.
But that also because there's other factors other than just our DNA, but also DNA changes within a person, like from a younger age to an adult. Yeah,
the telomeres, yeah.
I mean, that's also not taking into account radiation, what else is changing your DNA. So even though we start out with the same DNA, we're not the same. Even though we're the more similar than, say, you and your sister.
Are you guys twins or just sisters?
No, just sisters.
Okay.
Yeah.
They just look similar. but our DNA between Bunny and I is vastly different in the grand scheme of things, just because there's there's environmental factors as well as just the aging of DNA, right?
Yeah, and just, the whole thing of having a brother and a sister, technically, genetically, you are the same because it's 50-50 from each one, but, you're not going to look the same unless you're an identical twin. But,
right.
Even at the same time, just because your DNA is the same, it's one of those things of, that doesn't mean you're going to turn out to be the same.
No, yeah.
So,
it's kind of like all like a production line. All cars are roughly the same, but there's going to be little differences in between.
And stuff like that. They just happen.
Except obviously humans are a lot more complicated than cars.
But it's a simple term.
Right. Yeah.
It's because if you have the similar DNA of, our family is just tall, but you do have occasional short people, or
the recessive genes, right?
Yeah, there's that too that needs to be taken into account.
There's a lot of factors.
There's so many.
That's why I need quantum computing to be able to figure this out.
Yeah, because dominant versus recessive. That is another activation.
But that's something you can see within generation to generation. If you had an albino in your past, and there's a potential that you could
I have no idea
strike
how
that up again.
albinism works.
Is it a recessive trait?
I would assume so.
I could just be ignorant. Well, how about another one? Red hair is a recessive trait. Being a ginger, right, is a recessive trait. Man, I'm not the biotechnologist.
Is this biotechnology though?
I don't study people.
Well, it's all it's biology, right?
Yeah,
biology. But
well, anyways,
lots of
a recessive
branches.
trait. I'm pretty sure that red hair is a recessive trait. So
And
That's why there's not that many redheads, because, boring
They
colors
just
are
don't
more
have souls.
dominant.
Sorry.
According to South Park, yes.
It also has a tendency to skip generations, because Camille, she's not like bright flaming red hair, but her hair is pretty reddish in color, and my grandma had red hair, and I believe her grandma had red hair. It skips a generation in our family.
Well, let's assume that it's a recessive trait then.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff you can see within generations. Like someone will pop up and like, where'd you get those green eyes? We don't have or like blue. It's one of these eye colors. There's recessive eye colors too.
Eye color's ridiculous. Like, because everyone thinks of Mendelian genetics. You have the wrinkly pea and the smooth pea and the yellow pea.
Oh
and the
yeah, I
green
remember
pea.
that. I remember that
Yeah.
from middle school biology.
Is that BS? Like, I don't know. Like, that's how they teach you biology.
No, it's a big P,
101.
little p, not BS. No, I'm just
It's another simplified version that it does work for some things.
Okay, but it's just really simplified.
Yeah,
like, that's
is
what they teach you in high school.
Yeah, because with eye color, instead of having just 2 by 2 4-punnet squares, with eye color you have like 16 by 16. So it gets
and I do remember them teaching us that.
Yeah, so it's one of those things of it depends.
Okay, so getting back to your fox theory and the birds.
Yeah. I'm basically wondering, like, anyone who isn't a scientist and really into evolutionary theories basically has a very general idea of what evolution is. Now, as far as like your personal theory is concerned or other scientists' theories, is this something that branches off of the general idea?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like something that like, the common people's like idea of evolution is wrong. It's something that branches off of that general idea.
It's evolution of evolution.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an evolution of the theory.
I'm trying to like put that. I don't.
But
know
I mean,
how
that's
to
how
explain that,
that's how
but-
this all starts. When that
Yeah.
one guy like was trying to disprove. What's the guy? Space.
Space.
And he's
What?
in a wheelchair.
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. There was a guy who didn't
Space
who
wheelchair.
disproved one of his theories and stuff, and it was like, oh, so radical. But then,
Yeah.
but that's how it starts out, right? And like everyone's like,
And that's the one thing
yeah.
about being a scientist is that like if you have proof that like something happens and it's earth-shattering, you got to adapt to that. Like it's one you can have this belief for like hundreds of years and then you're just like, oh, we didn't have the technology, but BT Dubs because of this totally rewrites this. And there are people out there that are like, well, that's not going to change my mind. And it's like,
but that's because our lifetimes are so short and people are stubborn. But going forward, like people
reminds
die
me
and
of-
then their ideas die unless they write it down in a book and people just don't challenge it, right?
Yeah.
But I think
but everything should be challenged.
yeah, I mean that's what it is.
all the time.
That's why things
Yeah.
are called theories and laws don't happen as much, right? Because
Sure, yeah.
it could change.
Yeah, I mean it's my own personal belief, and it could be 100% wrong. Like, but I don't.
But
That's
so
the
what-
beauty of science. I
Yeah,
think
like,
if you're a scientist, you have to accept the fact that we don't know anything, and
And that's the horrible part about the school system. I know
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it, but it's just you're taught to regurgitate. You're not taught to
Yeah.
think.
Yeah,
So,
well, maybe if you go if you're going on to your master's program and they want you to think outside the box a little bit.
well, I mean, and that's
That's based on individual professors though, like trying to,
yeah.
or if you're like one of these.
Finding a good professor's hard. Not gonna lie.
But I mean, you know, there's obviously, yeah, I would say that, yeah, pretty much it's regurgitate, not think about.
Sure.
Yeah, but I mean, when I go through certain classes that I just don't care about, I'm just gonna do the bare minimum that I have to get through it, and I totally get that.
No, yeah, I get
And,
it.
like-
Especially when it's not part of your major or something. Like, I mean, my favorite classes were some of the ones that weren't part of my major, but they're ones that were so entry level that it's like
Yeah.
there's nothing. No one there wants you to think outside the box because you're just like, we're learning biology 101.
There's no deviation whatsoever.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's an offshoot.
Okay.
And the whole reason why I think this is because I took genetics.
Right.
So, yeah, because when your DNA is replicating, the DNA polymerase, or the little jelly bean that runs along it and makes copies of it, it actually has proofreading capabilities. So, say, because it goes like AT goes,
I'm just making
I
sure I
don't-
don't put this.
Oh, I'm just like, are you advertising or are you not advertising?
Doesn't matter though if the logo's showing. Anyway.
Yeah, because the AT and the C and G, they go together kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, when it's making a copy, it just puts down, the match to it. But, if it happens to make a mistake, it stops. And this thing's going 55 miles an hour inside of like a tiny single cell, which blows my
Yeah.
mind, which I don't understand why we're not exploding all the time. Just have like DNA just, but, and it's in the nucleus of the cell, not just the cell, like even smaller, but it's
Crazy.
running at 55 miles an hour, and you can totally comprehend that because you drive it, and it can stop on a dime, back up, fix it, and then keep going. Yeah, so it's one of those things that, there's a fail-safe for that. And yes, sometimes it does happen and it's rare, but there's another fail-safe in case that happens. Codons, what they are, a codon is a section of 3 pieces of DNA that are put together, and it makes a codon. And different codons are coded for different amino acids, but the amino acids have multiple different codes of the 3 different sets of DNA nucleotides. There's the word. Yeah, because 3 different nucleotides can make up a codon, and that turns into an amino acid. And it knows that it can have problems, so like generally the last letter is a variable. It doesn't have to be the same thing all the time, which accounts for a problem in the DNA. Also the RNA, which is what's made a copy of, that's sent out into the cell, that doesn't have proofreading capabilities. So it does make a copy, and if there is a mistake, what just happens is the protein gets made from it, and then it's like, oh, we can't do anything, and then it gets disintegrated.
Okay.
And it's just like, it doesn't really matter. So the important stuff is like the DNA. And, like I said, there's fail-safes for it. There are stuff that happens. There's different types of mutations. There's like an insertional mutation, like a frame shift, which can screw stuff up. Because there is, what is it? I believe there is only, I'm trying to remember. I think it's 1 stop codon or there's 1 start codon, but there's only 1. So if that gets screwed up, you're screwed,
Yeah.
But again, the rarity of it is there's generally fail-safes for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what actually happens if that happens? And you say you're screwed. What does that mean?
It depends on what and how significant.
Well, let's if you're alive and your DNA
Hypothetically,
craps out,
yeah.
you
if
can
something
look to
changed.
when they started making the atomic bombs. Anyone who they did stupid stuff like, I'll just put this knife here and then oops, it fell, and the entire room got blasted with radiation, and everyone died within a month or a few weeks, because it's not just from burns and stuff. It's your DNA is
you're
literally
melting.
you're inside and
insane.
everything just fails.
Yeah.
And it's not just that. It's because DNA is not just for reproduction.
No, it's like, because when you need to make a protein, like that, I don't know how it knows, it does, which blows my mind. It's kind of like how viruses just know stuff, but like if something needs to be made, a certain section unzips, and then the RNA polymerase, makes a little messenger RNA and sends it out into the cell, and I forgot what I was talking about of
DNA is more than just replication.
Oh yeah, it's not just for making copies. It's instructions for making proteins for certain things, because your cells are specialized. All of them are. Like your skin cells, they're designed to be skin. That they still have the information from all the other stuff, but they don't use any of it because they don't need to, because it's not turned on. Like the cells in your intestines, they're primarily made for excreting stuff and absorbing stuff. But I mean, they still have the basic cell functions, but they're not going to excrete like liver enzymes.
But it's the same thing, like when you take a scraping of the inside of your cheek, it has all of you in there. Like it knows how to make your hair. It knows how to make every shitty part of you, as well as we can say shit because it's a PG-13.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say time, but I forgot.
No.
That's only for the really
I go
bad
off
ones.
the public broadcasts
Yes.
on cable TV.
You're right.
So that's explicit would be anything more than that. Anyways, but explicit, explicit.
Oh, okay.
We're making up words, fine.
But
I like it.
but yeah. So with
But yeah, all the information is there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when DNA breaks down, it's not because it's because it's contained everywhere in you. And without that, I mean, then you can't make proteins. Like I go back to the atomic bomb when they were starting doing that. That's why they do all this stuff with robots now. If they're going to make, make any bombs or any nuclear material, like because it's like, oh, we'll just be real careful. But then a few times that people weren't careful.
I sneezed too hard.
So yeah, I mean, on Wikipedia, there's like tons of information about it, and like, it's kind of sucks. Like, you don't even know, like, were we just hit with radiation, and then, the one guy blocked someone and he got the worst, but they die within, or the other people who are just outside of it, just like by a few feet, like maybe living to their 50s, but have horrible medical complications because radiation poisoning is.
Oh yeah.
It's not just. I mean,
that does
like,
destroy DNA on
like
a large scale.
Isn't it like every piece of you, like your cells or whatever, is just
because then you're
deteriorating?
Well, what's an
scary.
example? It's if we focus on just one, if we focus on one cell that got radiation damage, if your liver couldn't use its DNA anymore because it's completely fried, that means your liver would fail, right?
Yeah, because say that specific section that your liver, needs to make, that enzyme to, let's say, like cure your body of process the alcohol in your body, and then you're going to die of alcohol poisoning because that one thing just happens to not work anymore, or just, the repair mechanisms of keeping your cells just going,
So that's what happens if you get a nice dose of radiation is.
Yeah, it's the instruction manual has now just been, jacked.
And, that's with like, when you're working with nuclear materials, but even going outside and getting sun exposure, you're getting some damage to your outer layers, right? A little bit enough that is that the same as, like skin cancer? Mm-hmm. Is it because the DNA's being corrupted, or is it because it's more of some weird mutation?
It is UV radiation. Is damaging to DNA. That's actually how you clean whatchamacallit, the hoods and everything that we have. Like you wipe it down with all these chemicals and everything, but then you turn on a UV light and it kills everything.
Yeah, I mean they use that to clear water. Mm-hmm. Like that's a UV filtration system.
Yeah, and like bacteria and viruses, they don't have any defense mechanisms for it, so they die, which is great. But people, we have defense mechanisms for it. And actually, to properly make, vitamin A or vitamin D? I can't remember off the top of my head. One of those two. You go out into the sun, and the UV radiation actually damages a disulfide bond, which causes something to break apart, and it changes it into a chemical that you need.
Yeah, I know everyone always says, you need to go outside in the sun and get some more vitamin
Isn't it D?
I think it is.
Yeah.
D is the sun vitamin.
Yeah, but I think...
No?
Yeah, you only need 15 minutes of it.
A day.
Of sun exposure a day.
Oh, yeah. Like
none of this, oh, you need to be outside. You need to be outside 15 minutes a day, and then that's it.
That's a lie. That you need to be outside more than that.
Yeah, but your body is designed for, it has defense mechanisms against it, and that's why when you go out into the sun, you get darker, your melatonin is released, and you get darker, which protects better. That's just how it works. I mean, yes, you still have damage, it's still not good for you, but UV radiation is just...
But it's only on the outside, and that's that's where the cancer comes from. Mm-hmm. Is the same way that if you get a heavy dose of radiation poisoning from, like, we're working with nuclear materials, except it's very small and probably only on the outside of your skin.
Yeah.
And that doesn't transfer to anything else in your cells, but does that mean...
Well, you can get metastasized cancer.
Does that mean the stuff on the outside isn't going to interfere with, say, the cells in your liver? Or does it eventually... Does your whole body just try to...
No, like, for just strictly speaking of, like, going outside in the sun, your liver's not going to be affected. But it's one of those things, say you get skin cancer, and skin cancer metastasizes to your liver, you now have skin cancer on your liver.
And metastasize means?
It kind of like breaks apart and like floats somewhere and goes, we're going to live here.
Okay.
Yay! And then
that's how cancer spreads, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's why, they amputate things sometimes.
Well, it depends. I mean, I'm not a cancer knowledge person, an oncologist. There we go.
We're like,
Science.
You know everything. You know everything science related.
I know cells.
Yeah.
I know viruses.
Yeah. I in elementary school, I knew someone whose mom got skin cancer on like the tops of her ears, and they had to cut them off.
Oh.
And,
My
whole life, I've always put sunscreen on the tips of my ears when I go outside.
Parents, my dad and stepmom, they live outside. They love being outside in the sun and stuff, and they don't wear sunscreen because. And I've asked them about it, like, because I wear sunscreen when I go hiking. Like, if I'm outside, it's usually from the house to the car. But if I'm out longer than that, I gotta put white sunscreen on. It makes me look stupid. But I mean, my dad, he's had lots of pieces of his face removed. They scrape off. I mean, you can't really tell, but. They scrape it off, and of course it grows back a little, but it's to cut off the cancer because
Wow.
because they didn't
to stop
and
it
and yes, it's because they continue to go outside, but it's also because it's the whole lifetime of back then knowing sunscreen wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
I did see a really awesome thing on the internet. It was a truck driver, and it was just a frontal picture of the truck driver, and it said, years of sun damage only on one side of the face from driving, and you could see the difference, and it's like, whoa. So that was pretty weird, because it was all like wrinkly and like older looking, and the other side just looked younger, and it's just different. Like, I would be upset having like two different faces on my face.
Yeah. So next
Sunscreen.
time, you need to go outside, David. You go outside, hike for an hour or so
I
with
think that's
sunscreen.
enough.
Yeah. I do feel better when you get outside, but longer than that, meh. So
we traveled from
there is no
all different places.
I'm gonna just while we're on UV. Is there a difference between there's no UV light bulbs give off UV radiation just like the sun, except in a smaller dosage, right? Or is it the same? Because it's hard to think about photons.
I don't know. I know.
It's not photons. Photons are UV light as well, but that's a particle. And is that different from? Okay, we're getting down to territory here.
Yeah, I know. There's UVA, UVB, UVC rays and stuff like that. UVC is the one that's generally used for killing stuff. I used to have an awesome little air purifier, and you just had light bulb in it and just UVC rays and just like push air through it, and I'm just like, I love it. And first came out, it was like $300, and you can get them for like $80 now, and I'm like,
So,
same model.
Somehow we got to this with skin cancer.
Yep.
So now we know a little bit more about that.
The more you know. I need a stick with a star on it. Just go, yay.
So if we go back to this fox and bird thing.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
Way back.
Tangents are more fun.
Well, no, this is good. I mean, we've already have an hour, and we've talked about this. So
I've been kind of watching the stream, making sure it's all good.
Oh,
or the chat.
Any bizarre questions or anything?
No, just people wanting to know what you're drinking. That's not coffee, is it?
Mm-mm. Chelsea got me this chocolate.
Your heart's just going to explode.
On the menu, it's called a double chocolatey chip frappuccino. They have to make it sound as kiddie as possible, I guess.
I don't know. I mean, it's pretty much water and chocolate.
It's milk, chocolate, whipped cream, chocolate chips.
It's just sugar. It's sugar in liquid form. in like an icy liquid form.
Yeah, they blend it with ice. Yep, not coffee.
I just needed some sugar.
Because if we had to change topics, I'm sure David could talk all about coffee.
Sure. Yeah.
How bad and how horrible it is.
I can complain about a lot of things.
That could be a whole episode on its own.
Oh yeah. We'll talk about that. It'll just be coffee. So, the fox with two tails.
Okay.
Or the finches with different beaks.
Yeah.
So if you, not that you have, but if you had to write up a paper trying to show your theory, obviously there's no proof, but what would you theorize that would explain some of this stuff?
Well, the first thing would be I theorize that I would get no funding.
Okay, sure.
And that's, honestly, that is the hardest part about science, is trying to find somebody to give you money to go do this, or, oh my God.
Because that would be like, first you got to go to the finches, you got to look at, I don't know, it's not something you can, the theory, you can't even witness it in our lifetimes, right?
No, as long as the subject that you're studying has a short enough lifespan and it can reproduce quickly enough, it can be observable.
But it would have to be on, like, probably a smaller organism, not a finch or a fox, right?
I don't know how long finches live.
Okay, but a fox, what about fox? Because they're roughly cat years, right?
Yeah, you probably could. But again, what's going to be the hard part
is differentiating between what is evolution and what is purely just random mutations in breeding.
No, is trying to find. Sorry.
Let me just explain this thing. They're like, no. Okay.
It's trying to figure out specifically what is going to turn on or off the environmental triggers to cause the DNA to turn on for what it needs.
Because you can't isolate enough to be able to see it.
Like, it'd be one of those things, say we took a finch and, like, we tagged it and everything and we took it to one of those islands, like, we have to, like, watch it, like, if that one doesn't die, because, it's going to be a struggle for it to live, we're going to have to, like, observe it to have babies and see if those babies will then have those different shaped beaks.
Yeah,
and
it's tough, right?
Yeah, because if we did it in a lab, we don't know what the hell we're doing.
Yeah. Being in a lab can turn on something else.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, the Himalayan cat gene, it's a mutation that happened that is affected by temperature. So on the colder points on a cat, which is like, for Himalayans, it gets darker, like on the nose, the ears, the tail, is because that this one gene just, stops kind of doing its thing at temperature X. So
okay.
Yeah, and I mean, if say that we kept that cat in a very warm environment,
it would start losing the black tips.
Well, no, I don't know if it would lose it or not, but it would never get them.
Oh, okay. So, but you're saying.
But because it's a temperature dependent.
But you're saying that it's not something that's passed through birth, like, well, or is it?
I believe all Himalayan cats have that, but I don't know if that's because that they're specifically Himalayan, or if it was like a mishap that happened, or if it was bred for that.
But when the gene turns off, it's that their offspring will have that. Or does that cat suddenly, the tips go away?
No, it's when that kitten is born. Environmental factors are warm, so it's not going to get points.
So is there a time when you think that the genes would turn on and off? Because after a while, like if you put that cat in its adulthood in a different environment, nothing's changing in its DNA, or is it?
I don't think so, because everything's already been established.
That's what I would assume too, because it's not like because humans, we don't adapt. I mean, it doesn't really matter, because our whole bodies aren't going to be replicated.
Yeah, no, we adapt our environment to us, which is one of the weird things about people.
So, is it when they're an embryo that these genes are changing, or is it when they're still being turned into an embryo?
It could be, it could still continue like weeks after they're born, kind of thing. Like
That's one of those things.
It'd be one of those,
things to study if there was ever a way to do it.
If there was ever enough money in the world, yeah. And I think that's the sad part of science, is that you're not going to get funded unless the company funding you is going to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's
or unless you're in a university and.
Oh no. No.
And that's their prerogative, or?
Well, you still have to get funding, even if you work at a university. You just have easier access to like the laboratory and stuff. And sometimes the university may even just be like, well, we don't want you to do this. Or it's going to be, we want you to do this because it's going to help us with this. It's like, but I don't want to do that. And they're like, well, if you want to use our stuff, you're going to have to do this. Yeah, my favorite professor, Dr. Andre Hudson, from Jamaica, actually. Then he moved to New York when he was like 9. And I don't know why, I asked him this. I'm like, why are you here? And, no, his whole thing is, there's never going to be a study to find out why ladybugs are red.
Right.
Because it's like...
That's because it's not going to benefit anyone. Like no one's getting anything
Designer
out of it.
ladybugs, it seems like a pretty like that would be a reason. A side effect would be figuring out why they're red of making that product of designer ladybugs.
But it's one of those things. Maybe the red in ladybug shells for some reason is the cure for cancer. It could be something like that. But it's because that people don't want to expand their knowledge for the sake of knowledge. They want to expand it for the sake of profit.
Yes.
And that's not how any person who seeks knowledge initially goes about it. It's just the side effect of trying to make someone else trying to make money.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's.
Well, that's not too terrible. If you're thinking about designer pets, there's a lot of questions. Like that could be something on there, like because luckily knowledge is cumulative. It's like
thanks to the internet. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe someone will find some study somewhere, and someone will like take a look at all these things and like, oh, suddenly I understand why ladybugs' shells are red.
Honestly, the majority of studies are done like that. Thanks to NCBI.
What's that?
It is a. I guess a server. I don't know computer stuff. It's a website. Mm-hmm. It's based in Sweden, I believe, and it's this giant conglomerate of like all of these studies everywhere in the world that's like ever been published. So a lot of them are free. Some of them you have to pay for, and the pay for it can get really expensive. But that's how you make money when you research stuff. Is people buy them so that they can. It's a horrible cycle.
Yeah.
But there are because of going to RIT and having going to the university, I had a free thing to look at almost anything. I mean, they'd have to go grab it for me, but I could get almost anything I wanted. And a lot of studies are just people reading stuff and putting it together. Experiments aren't even performed. It's just putting information together and inferring from other people's work. Mm-hmm. Which I had to do when I was researching the Glaucus atlanticus, because there's only 2 papers written on that.
I remember.
Is that the one you were telling me about? You told me about something that you were researching.
Oh, yep.
Is this a sea cucumber?
Yeah,
sea slug.
Sea slug, yes.
Yep. Yeah, and it's one of the rare ones that float on its belly upside down, and it eats Portuguese manaphores and porquitas.
And there's hardly anything out there about them?
Yeah, that specific breed, nothing.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to infer almost everything else from all other sea slugs.
Wow.
And I'm just but all other sea slugs are on the bottom of the sea.
Yeah,
and this one floats. So we're gonna hope that this is. Yeah, and
I mean, our world is so undiscovered even now.
Yeah, the ocean, scary as hell.
And I mean, there's islands that we haven't even been to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is weird because, we can get to them, but there's got to be a reason to go there, I suppose.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. It all boils down to money, unfortunately, and that breaks my heart for the scientific community because, think of all the advances that you could make, if you just I like to know things. Internet. I just sit there watch YouTube stuff and documentaries and that god awful Wikipedia.
Yeah,
but
Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's just and I check the references on Wikipedia. I'm that person because I'm just this sounds amazing, or does it?
Yeah.
So basically, we can hold out hope for Elon Musk types who have made money off of something, but then want to fund something else. Mm-hmm. And that's who you can hold out hope for, I suppose. But even then, that's still not that much money in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, because do you have any idea how much it costs to get a oh god, what is it called? A PCR machine?
I don't even know a PCR machine.
Yeah, it's for replicating DNA. Oh. They're expensive. I mean, you can do it without, you can replicate it without it, but you have to have water baths at specific temperatures and you're just sitting there for 20 minutes moving them back and forth, and it can be done. You can have a lab in your garage kind of thing, and it's all going to be spare parts, but they have such awesome stuff now.
Well, yeah, I mean, the idea is that once they, get rid of all the potential mistakes by doing it without something that's more precise.
Yeah, if it's automated, you don't got to worry.
And then that gives you time to actually
do other stuff. Oh, yeah. And you don't have to worry about just having problems. Oh, the one that we got to use at school, it was new, it was awesome. It even had an app for your phone. I loved it. It was great. You put it in, you put all the reagents in, and you just told it what to do, and it gave you updates as stuff was going on, and when it was done, it held it at 4 degrees Celsius. So like if you didn't come back right away, it was in stasis.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and you didn't have to worry. I mean, like it was about 24 hours, so like you could go home, which is huge. There's been times where like you have to sleep in the lab. Like you get a sleeping bag, you sleep under a desk, and you cry a little. But well, it's one of those things. If you have to check a culture every 4 hours for the next 36 hours, you're not going home.
Yeah.
And you're not sleeping because you have to be up every 4 hours.
But sometimes that's the fun of it, right? Or no?
Not that part, or like you have to, if you have to have something done by a certain time to be with the real world, like sometimes you have to start that experiment at 3 o'clock in the morning in order for it to be done for other people to get to it, and that's the sucky part. But I mean, I find it's worth it in the end, kind of thing. I mean, it's hard work. It's not just sitting at a bench and just going, yeah, I'm a mad scientist. I mean, I'd love to do that. That's, my dream job. But, just like getting things ready, making sure that it's done appropriately. And then again, like all the failures that happen, like if everything went right the first time, holy crap, we'd be like so far advanced.
Yeah.
We were doing a experiment on, this one virus. And I can't remember what it's called. It was 2022 and 2025. That's what we were using, the specific type. And it had an M gene in it. And we were trying to figure out what the M gene does when it's turned on and when it's turned off, because it had different effects on different things. And even with the professor helping us and like other people like setting up other stuff along the way, like we never got a real solid conclusion. And it was just like, this is a lot of, maybe, kind of. We don't know, let's do it again. And just, that's all we did the entire semester. But it was for her research, so it wasn't really us like, just like, oh, we're learning. It was, we were trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
And, it just, when stuff is off by like a microliter, it sucks.
Isn't that what a lot of science is, though? A lot of, this doesn't make sense. Let's do it again.
Yep. Yep, over and over
But
again.
if you can replicate it over and over again, then you know that you have something.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, and that's why when you write reports, you have to write it as if somebody else is going to do it over again because, it needs to be checked.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't do that anymore. They just assume, oh, this is done, it was done right, let's just keep going forward. And then you end up with all of these other problems. But the scientific community does have to have more like checks and rechecks. But again, it comes down to money.
Yeah, and I know we're going to take questions later, but this kind of ties into what you're saying right now.
Okay.
This person in the chat says, Aleigha, I wonder what you think about the lack of replication studies infecting science now. Is that similar to what you were just saying?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, because it's one of those things that nobody wants to waste time or money on it. And,
Yeah, it's really sad.
and some of the stuff is ridiculously expensive, Other stuff you can like go buy, agar and just be like, oh, I'm going to make like agar chips. Like,
I mean, you can argue that we're not making nearly as much progress as we could be if people were actually replicating their studies. I mean, are we slowing ourselves down by people not wanting to
potentially
replicate studies because of money and stuff?
Yeah, but I mean, generally the whole replication of stuff, it's one of those things of like, it has to be done, well, technically it has to be done by like a third party with like no contact, unbiased, and, do everything all over again. But it's just, again, it's time and money. And, if you're trying to move forward with something, why bother waste time on something that's already been proven?
Right.
But it's like, has it?
Yeah.
And it's like with X-ray crystallography. It's considered a dark art. It's magic in the scientific community because it's one of those things, like, nobody wants to be an X-ray crystallographer. Nobody.
What is that?
You take a protein, a piece of DNA, something, and you crystallize it, which blows my mind because like it's nothing. It's all like fats and lipids and like other stuff, sugars. Some stuff just can't be crystallized, and they make it happen. And it's one of those things that, like, there are people convinced that, oh, we're going to take this petri dish and it needs to be under this fan in this room because of the oscillation of that fan is causing the airwaves to go like this, and this is why it's going to crystallize properly. Like crazy stuff like that. But again, you can't see, like, that's how people, figured out the confirmation of DNA being a double helix was through X-ray crystallography. But again, it's a dark art of science where it's a lot of hope, a lot of luck, and,
Yeah, I was going to say, when you said nobody wants to be that, is it something that you kind of just fall into?
You make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But...
Like, do people seek that out?
I have never heard of somebody going, I want to be an X-ray crystallographer.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it never works.
Oh.
So there's no one out there who's like, I know how to do it, but I'm not telling anyone. It's literally like, it's trial and error, and when it happens, you're like,
woo!
Yeah.
Don't know what I did, but I must have had the mojo going.
Yeah, because you replicate it over and over again, and it doesn't always work. So it's one of those things of when it does work, you're like, yes! Which is why it's like, the specific room at this height, with this elevation, this humidity, with that fan oscillating.
And only positive thoughts in your head?
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to say,
it
sounds like a profession with a high
it's like
percentage
maybe it's like a
chance of
Schrodinger's cat
disappointment.
kind of thing where you can't witness it turn to crystal, but the minute you look, it's crystal.
No, it's science is disappointment.
Yeah.
Like yeah. Now, if we had unlimited money to convert that into resources, like, do you know how great that would be? I could make Pokemon for everybody out there.
And we could put them in pits and make them fight to the death.
See,
No?
I'm just
no, not so much.
I'm just gonna stop at making them. If you want to have dog fights and just put little talons on them and
Good
have
luck
the
with
cockfight
law
of the century,
Yeah.
I'd prefer not, because
That's why Pokemon's weird, right? It's like they try to make it positive, but it's like, I always thought. I mean, I think I said this in another podcast, but it feels like something I've said before. Where, like, what would make Pokemon just slightly make a little more sense is if it was in wartime. I mean, obviously not the Pokemon universe, but I always imagine if generals and stuff and with swords and bows and arrows, and they summon these monsters to help them conquer the battlefield. That makes a little more sense to me, like, as far as the game goes. But,
that's how we're gonna conquer Mars, is with my Pokemon.
But as far as like competition's competitive, that just feels weird to me because they're animals.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if they had like dog breeding shows with Pokemon, like they do in some of the games, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, they don't need to fight, but at the same time, as a kid, that was what was cool. Was like, yeah, Pikachu's gonna lightning this one to death.
Oh gosh.
No one dies.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
Speaking of playing, as a kid, playing God, or like playing with the idea of genetics, was anyone else obsessed with those Pets games as a kid on
the
PC?
PF
Pets?
PF Magic.
Oh
With the
my God.
Like dogs and cats.
Yeah.
The company they're made by PF Magic, right?
Yes, and I was obsessed with the dogs game as a kid, and not just I didn't even like play with them. I bred them, and I like created like cool weird breeds, and
No, I had those games
I
too.
didn't do that with that game. I had Creatures.
creatures.
That was also made by
that
PF
was
the
the
Magic.
same.
Norns. Oh, really?
I think it's the
I'm
same
pretty
people.
sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
With the Z at the end.
Yeah.
Was that that was the one? Yeah, it was similar though. It was basically like
It was on
a two-dimensional
Yep.
thing, but
And you were on a Discworld. Well, because it had to be 2D.
is this the right one? Are we thinking about the same
And
thing?
it had the little Norns, and you could breed them, and and there was.
I don't know.
Wait,
Wait, no,
also
I'm thinking about Oddballs.
Oddballs.
That was
okay.
PF Magic.
Yeah,
Oh.
Creatures. Creatures
that's a
must not have
different
been the
one,
same.
yeah.
I know
something
Creatures
different.
Lab was a significant part of it, but
I think it's a different company, yeah.
They had 1, 2, 3 Exodus, and then they had like little kids game, and they're trying to do some sort of online thing, which I've been like waiting for years.
Can't say no to that.
And-
that one.
Yeah.
You ever play Spore?
Yeah,
That is,
it's like Spore Spore is ultra simplified
yeah.
in
Okay.
this, but you had no direct. Well, you did once you uncovered the machine. You could mess with their genetics. I had played with the splicer. I would just like put them together all the time, and I'm like, ha! And no, but you could get down to like the nitty gritty of the genetics of the critter,
Oh,
and
wow.
like they even had like a virtual like brain map of how its thought processes went and
Oh my
everything.
gosh.
Like the book is like that thick, and I would just be like,
Wow.
nope, they're just cute.
Yeah, I just I don't know, that kind of stuff I loved I was fascinated by that kind of gameplay as a kid, and I've like recently, like gone online and seen if there's anything out there like pets that
Well, they still make that. Someone has a license and they're making Nintendo 3DS games, but they're not
the same.
They're not the
They're
same.
not like the
I
old
like
ones.
the little 2D thing, and you like scratch them on their head and like.
I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that stuff, and there's a big deficiency. There's a big lack of genetics games right now. I had a lot of fun with
PF
it.
Magic, that whole technology where this is going off topic a little bit. With like it's not 3-dimensional. It's like they're made of balls basically,
like ball
and different
jointed.
sizes, and it's 3D like in its own world, but like on screen it's made out of 2-dimensional things. They had this other game they made for Sega Genesis, called Balls. I'm pretty sure is what it was called.
Balls.
And it was basically Mortal Kombat, and it was 3D, but you know how a Sega Genesis could do 3D.
Yeah.
And instead of polygons, it would just use spheres, and they're not spheres because all they are I don't know the terminology, but it's a 2D object that's placed in 3D space. But because it's a sphere and everything's made out of spheres, like it doesn't matter where you turn it, it's
always going to be the same. Yeah.
It's like Mickey Mouse ears in video games. Like they just put them there and they just go with the camera. But,
No, those games were fun.
Yeah.
I wish I had something like that.
But anyway,
modern
while we're still on this, before we go into something else, we should take. How about we do some questions from the chat and questions from Twitter?
Sure.
So if you're in a chat right now on the live stream, let's ask some questions about the evolutions, the stuff we've been talking about now. Before we switch topics, because we should probably talk about your piercings.
Rebuttal, I don't know. Oh yeah, that's the other half of my life.
We'll switch to something. I don't know, just change it up because now we only got about 45 minutes left. But so maybe we'll take some questions from the chat on Twitter. Just shoot some questions while this will be live. If you're listening to this post-humorously, then unfortunately, you can still ask the questions. Maybe we'll answer those later. But at the Bennettarium on Twitter, you can always ask us questions. We usually pick those up later. But and Chelsea, if you have any questions,
do you want me to look at the chat or Twitter?
Yeah, let's do
or both?
chat first, just to give the Engineer-eteers a little heads up with what we're talking about.
Sorry, I'm trying to go back into the chat because I saw some stuff.
I mean, I have chat too.
There was one tamed turtle asked, "Are your thoughts or whatever? Or how do you feel about people? Lying about results because of sensational results yield more funding, which not only equals more money but future opportunity? Like the guy that lied about linking autism to vaccines.
That guy, oh my God!
See, we could get some good conversation out of this.
Well, we're one thing. I think if
Jenna
you ever
McCarthy needs to be put down.
If you
for that
if you want to know if you are on the fence about vaccines, you shouldn't be. There's a great clip from Penn and Teller's BS that just pretty much is the layman's term of why vaccines works and why it's good, why it's a good thing. So go watch that. There, we explained it. Go look that up on YouTube.
I'm trying to remember. That guy specifically, he did nothing scientifically accurate correctly. So he might have actually gotten correct results for how he was doing it, but as I recall discussing this in class, it was at like his daughter's birthday party. He was taking samples from just like random children with nobody's permission. Nobody was, and he just was like doing it in his basement. And it's just like,
so to this guy, and someone like that, it's obvious that they might have an agenda.
Yeah.
And that's not what a scientist is about. Maybe you want to prove something, but you got to go look with the results, and you have to be unbiased a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and also, what is the other one? Anyone watches Cosmos? I would say, the one specifically that stands out in my mind is the one about lead in the atmosphere. I can't remember the specifics of it, but it's one of those things that when the two guys were arguing in, what is it, Congress or I don't know, the government building.
Can't remember.
The judge or whatever even said, you guys both have the same information and the same results, but you are reaching different conclusions. And that's what gets confusing the one guy was paid by Mobil, Exxon or whatever, to say that, no, lead isn't going to cause harm when it's in gasoline, and the other guy is just like, lead is going to ruin life.
And
that's why we don't have lead paint. But the struggles that poor man had to go through to prove that, but because big business was on the one side, and it's one of those things of, also, being a fellow scientist that maybe ExxonMobil was like, if you just say this, we'll give you money to do your research that you want to do.
I'm guaranteed that's probably what happened.
Yeah, and it's just, it's such a sucky situation.
I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, you see that with I think anyone should just assume that any scientist hired by a company is in favor of the company.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because I mean, it's because a business is about making money.
Yeah.
It's not about ethics unless the people care about that stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, most people probably have the mentality of like, well, not in my lifetime. I'm going to make as much money as I can for this company, and then that's it. Who cares what the future holds?
Yeah.
But that's the problem, is that we have to wait till something terrible happens, and then they're like, okay, I guess we can't make money anymore. But that's
yeah. But it took this poor guy like years, and the amount like of stuff that he went through to try and prove this, because what was he doing? He was trying to like date a meteorite or date lead or something like that. But there was just too much contamination in the air of there being
I
lead.
remember that,
And he was doing a core sample in the Arctic or something ridiculous, and that's when they happened to hold the government building talks of stuff, and the guy he was 2 days late because he didn't even know about it. He had to fly back from the middle of nowhere to do this thing, or else the guy for the gas companies was going to win because it was uncontested. And it's just
Stream froze.
Oh snap.
It's okay. I just
And it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, it destroys passion for stuff. It's like, I don't want to do it because it's going to be too hard. And it's not just like, let's fight for it. It's a lifelong battle of just people giving you the middle finger the entire time. And, even if you get a group of people together, it can be so hard. And then you have, the public eye of, well, this is completely wrong. And it's like, yes and no. And you have to be like fully educated on some stuff, because I've read things and I'm like, that should not happen. But then I looked into it more and I'm like, okay, I understand why this has to happen,
Yeah, so not everything's black and white.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. Okay, well.
So that was about vaccines. So what's
I have another one here from Twitter @TauNoko. Does Aleigha have any opinions on morphogenetic fields, whatever that is, or? I'm
going to say I have no opinion because I'm not
your field?
aware of that. Yeah. No, my favorite thing is, little tiny bacteria cells. Like, I like making Escherichia coli glow green.
I also don't know what they're talking about.
But I will definitely look into it because it sounds interesting.
It sounds like a big word.
Morphogenetic field. Oh, they're talking. I'm an idiot.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Out of everyone here.
I don't know why. I'm thinking like morphogenetic fields, like some sort of weird magnetic field that causes morphism. That's.
But no, wait, what is it?
Again, I could be wrong, but I think it's like the field of morphogenesis. But I'm not very well adept to any of that.
Yeah, it seems we've got some people in the chat who seem to know what they're talking about.
That's the beauty of the internet. Is,
and I'll keep shooting questions your way if you want me to.
Yeah, I mean, I like to hear, and if anyone challenges me on stuff, I would love to hear their opinion and their rebuttal and why they think that, and I want to discuss this with people. I love this kind of stuff.
The feedback's been really great. Everyone's like, this is awesome.
This is a change because we talk about pop culture a lot.
People are saying this makes them want to learn this stuff.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Education and knowledge is the most valuable resource on the planet, and it's free.
Yeah,
potentially.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, you can't learn how to work in a biohazard 2+ level lab on the internet, but you can know about it. So it's just one of those things that knowledge, you need to go forth and do it. And I get that everybody has their own thing. Not everything's for everyone. I can look up how to fix my car on my own. I don't care enough.
Yeah.
I'll pay somebody to do that.
I get that, yeah.
But I mean, I watch TED Talks on this. Like, this is my jam.
I like this comment from the chat. They say, I feel like we all accidentally walked into the wrong classroom, but we were so interested that we stayed. Because it's been such a departure from the previous
there's a reason
episodes.
why we wanted
Definitely.
Leon, because Bunny and I, it's kind of an echo chamber a little bit. Like, and you kind of you kind of adapt, but Bunny and I are
it
so
wasn't my
on the same
idea,
level of
and
like.
I can easily just I can talk about whatever you guys are talking about, but it's really nice to have this change of pace.
But that's why people have multiple friends and stuff, because it's interesting. I like to have people that have things that I don't.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't want to be friends with myself, because you know what I mean, like because it wouldn't be interesting enough.
It's great having expand.
I would just be talking about video
list.
games and space and VR and music. Like that's what I can talk about. That's my jam.
Yeah.
But you have a much more interesting thing, because it's not something that I get to hear about all the time.
Like some people can be listening to this going, "Oh dear Lord, why am I here?" And I get that.
Well, last episode podcast, we were so lethargic.
Yeah.
that was the sleepy time podcast.
That was the sleepy time
with that one, we talked about a lunch machine.
Speaking of, Tamed Turtle from the Engineer-eteers chat wants to know, who would Aleigha meet in the lunch machine?
I didn't listen to the last one.
Kind of an inside joke. Like, now it's an inside joke, because the question was from Twitter, and it was, someone said, if you could have lunch with anyone, alive or dead, who would you want to have lunch with?
And then, of course, Bunny went on to,
Bunny,
what's this magical lunch machine?
Everyone was tired, and it became this whole thing about a lunch machine.
That was actually the title that we called the episode, Lunch Machine.
So I guess the question is, anyone alive or dead, who would you love to have lunch with?
Oh my God, so many people.
In the lunch machine.
So many people. If I could enter the lunch machine. Well, first...
Wait, now you enter it?
Well, that's what I figured.
Whoa. I was just thinking it was like a thing on the side, and you're like... Now we don't know this. Maybe it's a whole damn room.
I assume you would sit on a conveyor belt and you get a tray and you come out with a person.
I think I have a similar idea.
I didn't even.
I was imagining the time machine from what's his name's book.
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells. I couldn't remember who wrote that, but I was imagining something you sit inside and it generates lunch for you and whoever you want to talk to.
Okay, well, I was thinking that this was like a box, maybe a set-top box, that you can press a button and it just materializes a person and lunch for both of you. So we all had a different idea. But also, when you said you enter the lunch machine, like it's like a Doctor Who phone booth or whatever.
And they're on the inside.
And then on the inside, it's literally an open space where it can fabricate the person and lunch for you.
Giant cafeteria, Chef Gordon Ramsay just screaming while he's
Now,
cooking.
here's the thing: is the lunch machine is it manipulating time to actually bring these people, or is it a simulation and these are digital things based on this person, which would also say, how does the machine know everyone in history? So
it's a hologram telephone.
Because it could be a lunch hologram telephone.
So what was the question?
Anyways.
I guess, who would you want to have lunch with? In the lunch machine.
Well, the notorious Neil deGrasse Tyson, for just facts of, I know he's not a biologist or anything, but just...
Yeah.
He's
an educator.
Him and Carl Sagan, they're the people's scientists. They're the ones that brought the crazy stuff that not everybody thinks about to the common person.
That's why they're important.
Yeah, and that's why they're my heroes, because it's just they're the people scientists. They're the ones that everyone's science, we're gonna look at that.
Bridging the gap.
Yes.
They're also inspiring people to pursue these fields.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course, there's always going to be the crusty, grumpy people out there who don't like that. They're like, he's not a real scientist.
Or the scientists who don't come on, you see the good he's doing.
Because he can make it. Not saying he dumbs it down, but he can make anyone understand it.
The jelly bean terms,
and, and there's people out there who don't like him for that reason. I'm like, come on.
But you got to start somewhere, and that's the thing.
And that's why I think those people are admirable.
Yeah, if I just start talking about T4 bacteriophage and how everything just starts as a spring-loaded mechanism right into the cell and it gets into the nucleus through nuclear pores, you're gonna look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So jelly bean terms.
Yeah, no.
The equivalent would be spaceship comes down and puts in instructions and it goes into the instruction making box.
There you go. See,
it's
now
the
we
same
understand
thing.
this. Okay, that was a good question.
But,
so Neil deGrasse Tyson, you want to have
Neil
lunch
deGrasse
with?
Tyson, Carl Sagan, J. Craig Venture. there's a
From the Venture Brothers.
Very much so. No, there's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to move out here is there's a J. Craig Venture Institute out here.
Oh.
Yeah, he helped significantly with the Human Genome Project.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So the full mapping of the human genome.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, because of that, like, so many things were found out and discovered and all that fun stuff. And, I mean, like, I want to go there so bad. You know,
Maybe they'll listen to our podcast.
Yeah,
Hear it,
you know, if anyone happens to know anybody that's in science like that, just let
Oh yeah, we'll put your feelers out to the few hundred people who listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Aleigha's looking for a
biotech job. At this point, I'm happy just pipetting reagents. I don't want to work in a bar anymore. I don't like it.
You work at a bar currently.
I work at a bar and I deal with drunk people, and it's just like, this is not what I signed up for. But
I guess it's a way to pay the bills.
Yeah. I want my dream job.
With that,
Or if anyone happens to have just lots of money and an open space, like, I will make a lab in a Winnebago and we will make this work. My friend has 2 acres of property out in Nevada. We planned on making Pokemon out there whenever we had enough money. So, I mean, that's a thing too. If you have a Winnebago, we can use.
And also, if you have that much money, you should probably cut it in half and send some of it to Steam Powered Giraffe. Because we could use our own theater space, and then we could like have shows weekly.
I mean, they are the music that I listen to while I do work. So I mean, you know, I need more musical inspiration.
Okay, well, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so do we want to do any more questions, or should we change topics and talk about your other interesting?
They're slowly rolling
facet?
in, but if we want to change topics, that's fine.
Okay, well, you can look at them and see if you.
I can go back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the last question that came in. Oh, nope, more coming in. Here, Giraffe on Twitter asks, the challenge in writing DNA is to know the code.
Yep.
So did the decoding make a leap forward recently?
Not really.
No.
No, I mean, that was part of the Human Genome Project, was try to figure out and map where everything is.
Yeah.
Another problem with everything is how genes work. Because there's introns and exons, and pretty much like how when you go to make a gene of something that needs to be made, the thing that makes a copy just kind of runs along, and all of it comes up, and you have everything right there. Mm-hmm. And introns and exons, what they are is useful bits and non-useful bits. And what has recently been found is that they take out some of the non-useful bits, and it can be like squished down together, and like, oh, this is a gene now. But they're also seeing that, you know, you can take section 1, 2, and 3, and all of them together could make something. Section 2 and 3 could be something different. Section 1 and 2 could be something different. Section 1 and 3 can be something different, but it's all from the same gene. That's where it gets complicated.
Yes.
Because you can have 3 different things from one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So even though it is simple, like simple as in the amount of variables is deeper than it appears on the surface.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and because we don't know all of the, you know, what's taken in and out. I mean, we have a good idea of specific things, but everything, not a clue. Mm-hmm. Although I do have to say, one of my favorite, can't remember if it's I believe it's a gene. Yes, the Sonic Hedgehog gene, named after the little blue guy himself.
Yes.
What that does specifically is it makes multiple copies of stuff, like fingers and toes.
Oh.
Yeah, so when you're an embryo on the inside of your body, this little tiny area, like Sonic Hedgehog gene just starts going, and because you can start with paddles, and you just start getting fingers.
Oh, wow.
And if it goes too much, you have more fingers, and that's called polydactylism, and polydactylism is actually a dominant trait. And generally what they do with people who have like too many fingers, they're not like 100% fully formed, so they just like nip them off, and you have like a little scar like when you're born.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So why is it called Sonic Hedgehog gene?
That's what they wanted, because they're nerds and they're wonderful like us.
Okay. Cool.
I don't know anything about Sonic the Hedgehog, so it's like,
Well. Our next podcast happens to be chili dogs, and why?
I was like, yeah, why is it? What correlates Sonic to that gene?
Is
or
it because
just random?
Is there
I think
any
it's
correlation,
like
or just because
spikes
they're like?
is like the biggest thing,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was more just like, no, like it was legitimately after
It could've been
the Sonic
anything.
character,
Okay.
and it was just like, yes!
Was it a group of people, or is it just one guy who's in charge? And like, I'm going to make this ridiculous. So, but at the same time, it also might make like outsiders from the scientific community to be like, though there's a gene called on eggshell. Like it kind of starts the conversation.
Oh,
Yeah.
and the other thing too that I find hilarious is like overly honest scientific papers. Like that's a thing.
Oh.
And it's hilarious because it's like this is totally true, and I love it. Like because you have to write out the experiment, word for or not word for word, but step by step, so people know and like why you chose this, and it's like. I chose gentian violet because it was the closest within reach, like stuff like that. Not because it's any specific of, oh, I wanted Kumasi blue or I wanted this, and it's like, nope, this was closer.
Yeah.
Or I mean, there's this huge like I'm sure you could find it on Tumblr, but it's hilarious, and some of them you just read and you're like, all right, that's a bad day. But as long as you're keeping it real, that's what they care about in the scientific paper.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, one of them was when you kill mice to like do dissections on them, they term it as sacrifice, and it's one of those things of we sacrificed rats to Tom Petty in the lab because that's how we roll.
Oh.
It's just like stuff like that.
So there's a reason to kill the rats.
Well, I mean, it's just gotta listen to something, I guess.
Yeah.
But those little comments make life worth living.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
Okay, let's
the other half of my life.
let's go
Yeah,
the other half of
yeah.
your life. So
The-
basically, from what I know about you in the last whenever we've talked, is that biotechnology is one of your jams, but your other jam from your not too distant past is piercing and owning your own piercing shop.
Yes.
And performing piercings as well as having piercings.
Weird.
Is that how you is that the right term? Piercings?
Sure.
Why are you saying it so weird? Oh,
Am I
was
saying it
hearing
weird?
piercings.
Yeah, it sounds like
Piercings.
you're putting a little bit of an emphasis.
Piercings.
But I mean,
Piercings. Is there a way to
Oh, I
say
thought
it?
you were doing that on purpose. I don't know.
I
was
mean,
just saying
I
pierce.
am me, but I'm not doing it to be funny.
Oh.
Piercings.
yeah,
Piercing.
piercing,
But
body
I'm putting what?
modification.
An emphasis on
Yeah,
piercing.
piercings.
But whatever. I mean,
Piercing.
I had a girl come in
Piercings.
and she asked for a ball and she had an accent and I thought she was saying bowl and I'm like, we don't serve paraphernalia memorabilia here. And she wanted just like a ball for her hoop and I'm like, oh, a ball. She's like, yeah, a bowl. And I'm like, you're clearly from Jersey.
So how did you get into piercing?
Well,
Piercing.
Piercing.
That's what I was doing.
I was going to community college for the basic biotech stuff, and my boyfriend at the time was into piercings and tattoos, and he ended up like becoming buddy with the local piercer, and he's like, oh, I need a girl piercer to do girls stuff, and it's
No, yeah. We all have
You gotta
imaginations.
be okay with
We
that.
have imaginations. We can understand.
yeah. It's just sometimes it's horrifying.
Yeah.
But anyways, he needed a girl piercer, and I'm like, I need a way to pay through college, so we're gonna do this because
Yeah.
I didn't really want to be in retail. Like, what was it? Like costume shops and
Yeah.
dog kennels, and I'm just like, I get to be inside. Neat. And there was actually a huge overlap. I didn't realize at the time of biotech and body piercing of the whole microbial lifestyle, I guess you'd call it. Yeah, because you need to keep stuff sterile, and like I know what specific chemicals you need to kill specific things, and like the times that you need, and
So it's a good marriage that not a lot of people would consider,
yes,
know about.
yes, because a lot of people are like, oh no, just doctors, and I'm like, well, yes, but I mean the whole biotech part of it too is I can explain why soap works, and and I've had to explain that to people. They're like, well, why should I wash it if I can just, like spray this magical stuff on? I'm like, let me tell you about soap. Yeah. Yeah, and because of, microbiology stuff, like, just, you learn about amphiphalic molecules and everything, which is what soap is, and that's what a bubble is, and, it traps stuff, it picks it up and moves it away, and that's why it removes dirt, it removes... Like washing your hands is the best thing. The hand sanitizers and all that stuff needs to be 70% alcohol, first of all, which I have yet to find a 70% alcohol hand sanitizer.
Yeah, most of those little hand sanitizers,
They're like 68%.
They're not doing anything.
Yeah, which makes me sad. And like it's the kind you put on and you're just like, oh, my eyes. That's when it's doing its job.
Right.
There's also the BZK, the benzoammonium chloride. For hand stuff, it's not that great. I mean, it's good for like surfaces, but it makes your hands sticky on a molecular level. So you can actually have more sticky stuff sticking to you than actually being clean. But just washing your hands, like 30 seconds, ABCs, sing it twice, happy birthday song, and you gotta make sure you get between your fingers and your fingernails.
Yeah, I remember them teaching that in middle school, of all things.
Yeah, and you go like that, because everyone's just like, yay, done. And it's like, no, you gotta get the backs of your hands in between, and just, And I had to wash my hands like 50 times a day because it was before and after everybody at work. And just like getting eczema and just be like, oh my God, lotion. And then you're so happy and someone walks in
and you don't use
like, no.
gloves?
No, you do.
At the same time?
Oh, definitely, yeah. We had latex gloves. We also had nitrile gloves. But
Neoprene?
Yes, those two. But I prefer latex, powder-free latex, because, I mean, it forms around your hand. If you get a size too small, like, you don't have to worry about it being oversized, textured. It's great. But, yeah, you'd still wash your hands before and after everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I actually enjoy the smell of inhaling Lysol spray. Not like huffing it, but, spraying it everywhere.
Yeah.
Because my one friend, when she would, like, stick her head and she's like, hey, I got it. Because the whole room would be filled with just Lysol.
And that's how you knew that it was clean.
Yeah, because like even MRSA is super easy to kill outside of the body. Like, just Lysol spray can kill it. It's great. It's just once it gets into the body is when it's hard to kill, because you have to find something that's not going to kill the person that kills the bacteria.
And what's MRSA?
Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus.
And what is that commonly known as?
MRSA.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, typically that stuff is only found in like hospitals and whatnot, but the whole MRSA scare is community MRSA, and that's where stuff gets dangerous. That's where you have the antibiotic resistance to everything.
Oh.
Yeah, so like you got to get put on like vancomycin or Cipro or something like that, and it brings you near death kind of.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's not good, but. You wash your hands, you're fine. Like, legitimately. Because soap can pick it up and move it. Lysol spray, it can kill it because it's outside of the body. And it's super simple stuff like that. But you have people that go, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, yeah. Like, door handles freak me out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When like the microbiologist handshake, you bows it. You just hit elbows with people.
I like that. We should like make that a common thing with everyone.
Just say, oh,
elbow
hey.
bump.
Yep.
At the same time, there's something to be said of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yes, and I agree with that.
A little exposure to...
Oh, no, like totally. What is it? Strep throat? That's the streptococcus. It's another type of bacteria.
It's a dinosaur. Streptococcus.
Yeah. No, but yeah, you do build up resistance and stuff, but and again, that's why MRSA is a problem, is because of overuse of antibiotics. Also with antibiotics being in, like, they just give it to cows. They're just like, oh, just to keep you from getting sick. Like that's a significant problem. Mm-hmm. It's not as much as doctors overprescribing it, but they do. Like, that's not a thing that should be overlooked, but it's a simple, quick fix. And because a lot of stuff is bacteria, it does that. But what causes the problems is when people are like, I feel better, I'm going to stop taking my antibiotics.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yep. And so people stop taking their antibiotics, and those cells that don't die, they also have that what doesn't kill you make you stronger. But the scary, scary thing about bacteria is that they can share DNA. They can just go, wait, there you go. Mm-hmm. I know you need that.
Yeah.
And that's actually how we do stuff in the lab, is like if we want to make them glow green, we have a vector, and it has the gene on it for ampicillin resistance. So it will make it want to take up that vector because it's going to use that to survive, but it also has the thing to make it glow green. And I mean, it's used for a bunch of different stuff, but my favorite's making it glow. But yeah, take your antibiotics, finish them all. There's a reason.
So yeah, I remember I had I think I had bronchitis. Mm-hmm. I had one of those. And I didn't finish my antibiotics because I don't know.
You felt better.
And then, of course, a week went by and there it was again. And then the doctor was like rolling his eyes like, this time finish then.
Yeah. And yeah, just the whole sharing of DNA scares the hell out of me, because that means it doesn't have to reproduce. It means that it can just hand it out to anyone that needs it. So there isn't that time delay of having babies. It's sharing with your neighbor. And
I mean, on I mean, they're just trying to survive just like us.
Oh yeah, but
They don't want to kill us. It's just a side effect.
Yeah, I mean, that's life. But I'd have people come in, they're like, oh, I have some extra antibiotics at home. Should I take that? And I'm like, you're the reason why we have problems.
But anyways, so piercings.
Yeah, that's what I did.
You had a very clean shop.
Yes, and being able to cross over microbiology and all that stuff is what made my specific shop so big. I brought it from like a crappy little shop to like number 2 in the area almost.
Oh, cool.
So I mean, and I was with a piercing shop every 15 minutes out where I lived. Like I was pulling in people from like an hour away from like
Nice.
Webster and stuff.
That's cool.
So that showed me that I was doing well, because if not, then obviously I wouldn't.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, piercing became a huge part of my life. It's actually interesting because like I looked into the cultural aspects of it as well, like different tribes, different people and stuff. Like the labret piercing right here, that was done.
Which is on the bottom of your lip, just for the audio people.
Oh yeah, geez, sorry.
That's cool.
Yeah, the labret piercing was not started, but is more of its significantly known in the African culture where they have those big lip discs. It starts out as a little thing like this, and then they just keep stretching and stretching and stretching. And apparently their thought on that is that women don't grow beards, and they believe beards and facial hair are beautiful, so women would stretch their lips to have another form of beauty that would equate with men.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's also scarification, where like you literally just like, there's different ways to do it. You make marks on the skin to cause hypertrophic scarring, which is like a puffed up type of scar.
Oh yeah.
And there's a tribe over there that's your rite of passage, that they put a whole bunch of little marks on you to simulate alligator skin.
Oh.
Yeah. And I mean, it's neat, looking at that stuff. And the cool thing is, primarily, they're not done with sterile technique or anything like that. They're like, oh, here's a rose thorn. And it's okay.
Is that just because they're exposed to it so much, whereas we're in a more clean society? Or is it because...
Well, that's part of it. Also, depending on what they use, like bone, wood, horn, antler, stuff like that, it's porous and has like beneficial bacteria in it. And honestly, it eats away at the ear cheese, like the horrible smelly stuff that you get on your jewelry.
And it's
actually helping that.
Yeah.
So are you saying, so a wooden gauge earring
Plug?
is plug?
Gauge is a form of measurement. It's like
I
saying,
am not the piercers.
it's like saying I kilometer today.
Yeah, okay. Well, see, this is why, well, I don't have any piercings. But, so a wooden plug is better than a stainless steel one?
It depends. It's personal preference, really.
So for ear cheese?
For ear cheese, yes. Yeah.
Stainless steel would get more ear cheese.
Yeah, because it doesn't really have anywhere to go or
Sure,
do anything. Like,
okay.
you still get it on wood, but it doesn't smell nasty.
Okay. Because it's breathable, maybe?
Yeah. Well, it's porous.
Porous.
Yeah.
So it breathable?
Maybe.
I don't know, but
No
is that
one's really
why
looked into
it doesn't
it.
smell, or is it because the bacteria
I
can't?
believe it's beneficial bacteria.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you got bacteria living on you all the time, so why not in wood?
So that's not as high a chance of infection with piercing out in the wilderness. According with these tribes, anyways.
Well, it's remarkable,
That
to say the least,
yeah.
that like, because you do any of that stuff here, it'd be just, of course, people are just, there's different things, like I have a lot of mechanics that used to come in and just and it's just like, oh my god, you have motor oil in your face now, and like you don't have that out in the wild.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have extra stuff now.
Yeah, so it's different. Whether one is better or worse, I can't say, because there's no scientific studies that are significantly gone into body piercing, which blows. And I tried doing that, and it's just so hard to do.
Like everyone who comes into your shop has to be part of your experiment, of your study.
I would love to do that. Yes. But when I was in school, they're like, oh yeah, we get to use all of our stuff, and you have to do an experiment. And I'm like, I called up Dave Vitra. He's a nurse that is into body piercing kind of stuff, and he's an educator. And I'm just like, I have this chance, and he was just busy, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna wing this, because it was one of those things. It was very important. Like, if we have a fresh piercing, and I swab it and see what's growing on it, we can figure that out, and then we can figure out, what type of washing is going to be the best, if it needs additives, if it doesn't need that. Like, so much could have been found, and it just didn't happen. But yeah, no, I don't know. I'm just used to answering questions about it, not just talking about.
Sure, yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah,
that's fine,
no.
yeah.
Well, if anyone has questions
if any of
about-
you have questions about piercings while we have Aleigha with us,
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I know we're
we have about 10 minutes or so.
We're wrapping
yeah.
up, but
Just as we're doing this,
Anyone
if this is humorously for you, and you can always send your questions, and maybe we'll have Aleigha on in the future if she enjoyed her time.
Yeah, like.
I know you like talking, so I was like, I know the perfect person for a podcast.
It makes my job easy.
Well, thank you for doing the questions.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I like watching the chat. I've commented a few times.
I'll bring a whiteboard and we'll go over how electron transport chain and how ATP is made.
Yeah, we'll have a little. We'll educate the people who would normally
We're gonna
not.
have an army of biochemists, and it's gonna be great.
They'll all want piercings and
Pokemon.
want to and Pokemon. Yeah.
Any questions to wrap up?
The next our next podcast is going to be Sunday, November 20th. I'm not sure if Bunny will be back by then or will be there for that one, but we are going to have Chelsea's sister again, Camille Penyak, on.
Camille will be back next week.
And her specialty is Final Fantasy.
That's still a good topic.
So maybe I doubt we'll make. None of these podcasts are one thing. I mean, even this one, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go through what I know about you, and you're just gonna talk about it.
And like, I don't know if this would be doable, but I think it'd be fun to at least once try like a big group of us.
Sure, yeah, we've done
like
up to 4
a party.
people,
We could have everyone, Camille and you.
Just sit shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun and interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, we can make it work. Even if we didn't have, because these pick up enough. We only have 4 microphones, but we're close enough that people would be able to hear everyone. But yeah, so that's going to be November 20th at 3 p.m. If you're an Engineer-eteer, you can watch it live. If you're not an Engineer-eteer, consider becoming one. Visit www.thebennettarium.com. You can find all the information of one Engineer-eteer. One of the benefits of being an Engineer-eteer is that you get to watch the podcast being taped live.
So when I point to things, you're
can
not
see
confused.
It's a little interesting.
I really like the new black background.
These are sound blankets we put up. You can't see it on the if you're hearing this, but I put up sound blankets around our thing to put a little less to soak up some of the reflection.
Yeah.
And it might. Well, I'll listen to the audio. It might sound a little better. But the Engineer-eteer site is for our band that I'm in, Steam Powered Giraffe. One of the perks is that you get to watch live Bennettarium podcasts as well as the archive versions of those. So. We've done a podcast every week, so it's going to be a lot of content. But we also you get the full discography of Steam Powered Giraffe available in high quality MP3s, the behind the scenes blogs of what we're working on in the band, videos, tons of stuff. A little pet giraffe, Tamagotchi kind of thing. Other people, other fans you get to chat with in the forums and the chat rooms. Chord sheets for some songs and. Exclusive tracks and stuff. So if you're interested in Steam Powered Giraffe, it's the Engineer-eteer site for like, I don't even know what it is now, $4 a month or something.
Oh,
cheap.
Cheapo
it's cheap
stuff. And you get so much.
And it's not really, you pay like $20 or something for a year, or $30 for a year. I can't remember what it is.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's a great way to support the band. And hey, it also spawned the Bennettarium. So thank you, Engineer-eteers. It lets us do this, and we love stream it to you. For those of you who are listening to the free podcast, that's perfectly fine too. We all listen to podcasts in our free time, and we're happy you're listening to this one. This one's gonna be going up shortly today, probably on the Sunday. So
we've got plenty more questions. I know that
we still got 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't have to end right at.
You're right. We could go another hour, but my butt's getting sore.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I don't think anyone wants to listen or download a 3-hour podcast. But yes, I'm gonna go ahead and fire off some more questions. This first one, I don't know if it's answerable, but someone asked, "What is the craziest piercing anyone has ever asked you to do?"
A toe.
A toe?
Oh,
I was not expecting that answer.
Like which toe?
Like the big toe.
And did you do it?
Yeah.
Did it work out?
I don't know.
I feel like that'd be really
toe?
tough. And how do they walk around with it?
Well, see, that's the problem.
Because they can't wear socks.
Well, see, I'm glad I asked because
Isn't that have a higher chance of
like,
infection if it's being like
genitals, yeah.
if it's encased in a
common.
sock or in a shoe? Isn't that like bigger chance of infection? or
Oh,
something?
definitely,
Oh,
yeah, all
God.
the fuzzies and stuff. See, the problem was this girl came in January, and I'm like, you're gonna have to wear sandals for like the next 6 weeks to like 6 months.
in
and she,
what, New York?
yeah. In New York, where there's salt all over the place, there's snow everywhere, and it's
You're
just like.
you're in New York for
Yes,
those of you who
yeah.
don't.
Yes,
know,
upstate
yeah.
New York, Canandaigua, Rochester, Palmyra.
And like most people, once they hear Steam Powered Giraffe, they move to California.
Well, I came here for the job opportunities, but this is cool too.
Yeah, sure.
But no, it was one of those things. Like it kept telling bad idea, and like an hour and a half of going back and forth, and just like,
Fine, you want to dig your own grave?
yeah, pretty
Is
much.
she dead now? I'm just kidding.
Well, I told her, I'm like, please come back like once a week, once every 2 weeks, so I can check on the progress, so we can see
Yeah.
what's going on. Because the barbell she got is oversized to allow room for swelling, and I'm just like, we're going to put a shorter one in, but it just never saw her again. So
Where on the toe? I'm trying to picture this.
on
Like,
the top
what-
part.
Okay.
Yeah, like you
And
can
it's-
kind of pinch skin
it's
there.
one of those
Why
bar
did you want the
ones?
toe? Didn't you like? Because I assume you tried to. Are you sure you don't want it here? Maybe on your face. Maybe or you tried to convince her
I
of
have
elsewhere.
I'm
learned
dying.
very quickly, don't ask those questions of why people want stuff.
Oh.
Because they tell you, and then
And
you're
then
like, oh, and you're scarred for like the next month.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and then
I
you're just
see.
like, all right,
Uh-huh.
now I know.
I mean,
Oh my
I'm just so
God.
naive and innocent. I didn't even think, but
I know.
I have an imagination. I
Yes.
can imagine.
Yeah, I just stopped asking why.
All right,
after a
well.
while.
Here's another question. Not really similar, but Espy asks, worst place to get pierced, whether it be painful or hard to keep clean, etc. Where do you not want to get something pierced?
That's subjective to
Oh,
each
okay.
individual person. And it also depends on if the piercer knows what they're doing.
Sure.
Because the septum can be the most painful experience
Which is
ever.
the other than the nose.
Yep,
yeah.
yep, this is
Have you ever
the
tried
bull
to
ring.
wear those Chinese fake mustaches? You know, you get from
they
like
pinch?
plastic mustaches.
Yep.
Like as a
yeah.
kid, they would always make me start crying because
Yep.
it's like.
I don't have any. I can't do anything cartilage related. I have like 7 studs in my earlobes, and that's it. I'm not really I'm really not squeamish, but I just don't think I could
So how do you do a septum piercing right?
Yeah.
I mean,
My
I'm just,
fear is if I tell, I don't
Oh,
mind
no,
sharing knowledge.
yeah.
I don't want
Sure,
stupid
no.
people going, yeah, because
Yeah.
I've seen that so many times, and then they come in and they're like, what happened? I'm like, well, you're dumb. That's what happened.
well, you're a professional, so don't try anything that Aleigha says.
there's a big ball of nerves in your nose, and you want to avoid that big ball of nerves and also avoid the hard cartilage. There's like a sweet spot that you want to go through, and it's one of those things that some people don't have room. Yeah, if like you stick your fingers in, like you feel around. It was one of those things that people just get weirded out. They're like, I want this. I'm like, all right, just beep. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm seeing what we can do.
Yeah.
Because you can put different sizes in. Some people are just like, all right, you just want to stick with the smallest thing and slowly stretch up. You can just jam whatever size in there, but you want to die.
Yeah.
The pain will be
I was
terrible.
one of those idiots.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had enough room for a 16 gauge, and I'm like, screw it, let's go for the 12, which is, 2 sizes bigger.
Sure.
And we hit that little ball of nerves. My 2 front teeth went numb. My eyes watered for days. My nose was swollen and huge. Like, I noticed it was swollen
Yeah.
and huge.
Was this
for-
before you were like learned?
No,
This was just because
Oh.
you
I
were.
don't take my own advice.
Okay. Naturally.
There's a spot in the ears that's similar that they say I don't know which place it is in the ear, but I've heard that there's one that is you don't want to hit those nerves or your face will go numb or something.
No. That I had this one customer that came in, and her mom was a nurse, and her mom told her that.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, no.
So that's not true.
Yeah, you can.
Then the nose is worse as far as the ball of nerves.
It's pain-wise, yeah. I mean, well, think about, again, like all things on the planet are similarly built. Bull rings. You have a 5,000-pound animal running at you, and you whip, and you got it on the
Yeah.
ground.
Bull rings in the nose, right? Yeah. That's why they put those in there.
Yeah, to control the animal. Because, it's very sensitive.
Yeah.
So if you're ever in a fight, boop, just,
Yeah, if you can
thumb
do
up
that.
the nose. It hurts, whether you have a piercing or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, cleanliness-wise, that's, again, subjective. I'd say don't do your butt crack. Like, that's probably not good.
Yeah.
No, yeah, okay. That you haven't had to do one of those.
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't know why I asked, but just because.
Well, people have asked, and I'm just like, you don't want that.
What are they gonna do? How are they gonna bidets for the rest of their life?
Yeah, that's not a thing in America.
And it isn't. So you can't. I mean, unless you're in Europe.
No, but it's just, yeah.
I'm looking for more questions.
Yeah, because like the only real thing I was just like off the top of my head was like, oh, aftercare, and just like the thing that I repeat over and over again. So, because unless I don't know, for piercing, I'm just so used to having questions asked to me before I speak about them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question, then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Just continue talking until I find one. Sorry.
So, gonna go see that Doctor Strange?
Yeah, I really want to. I've
saw
had
it
like
sometime this week already.
I love Benedict Cumberbatch and the fact that he looks like otters.
He does. He has a very unique facial structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on YouTube they had this thing of just him looking similar to otters, and it's hilarious.
I saw it, but we won't speak about it because
Yes.
I'll save that for next time, for when everyone around has seen a movie. Yeah. But it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable, and it was a little more refreshing than some of the other Marvel movies.
I heard it held true to the comic.
I don't know much about the comic, unfortunately.
And I also heard it held true with real science.
Oh.
Can't speak to that either.
Yeah.
But yes, it is a superhero Marvel movie, so it does have a formula. But it was definitely enjoyable. Mm-hmm. I would recommend it even if you're tired of superhero movies.
Yeah.
It's definitely a popcorny flick, but
my only complaint is that it left me wanting more. But
it's not Oscar material or anything.
All I can say is that Marvel plays.
And there goes our sound.
Whoa! Oh, okay.
I need to get more push pins. I was holding it up by one, so.
Marvel plays their movies very, very safe. Like, we were watching a Red Letter Media, their review on Doctor Strange, and they were like, Doctor Strange should have been a very strange movie. They should have...
because she hasn't seen it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying...
I don't know. I don't want anyone biased going in, because now you're going to have, like, bias.
Okay, sorry. It wasn't any spoilers. I was just saying it felt like every other Marvel movie. Like, it should have taken more risks.
Sure.
That's all.
Yes, it is definitely a Marvel movie.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
But it's enjoyable. It is definitely enjoyable.
Yeah.
I preferred it over Ant-Man.
I have not seen Ant-Man either, but it was one of those things where it was like, about that.
Again, it was like I left the theater not feeling anything.
I mean, it isn't like one of those movies
Marvel
like,
movies are enjoyable enough while you're watching them,
yeah,
but
definitely.
It's not like I go home and like dwell on it and think like, I want to know more about this movie. Like, I don't know.
It's Daniel Day-Lewis playing Abraham Lincoln. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of movie that you're like, yes, excellent. I mean, it's an action movie, action adventure. Somewhere between.
Yeah, I've been like trying to delve into the Five Nights at Freddy's fan lore, and that's been something. Yeah.
Well, I guess if you wanted to do one more question, I have one, but I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Not too many more have come in, but so one person was asking, Roxy Hart wants to know, how does one start stretching earlobes? Like, how do you start?
How do you start?
Well, because you have, for the listeners, you have a
half-inch.
A half-inch gauge?
Okay.
Is that the right terminology?
Well, gauging stops at 00, and after that it goes to inches, or it's just all millimeters.
So it's not a gauge anymore. So if I asked, what's the gauge of your plugs? That would not be the correct terminology.
It would not be incorrect.
But you'd realize that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, you could just go what size.
What size are your plugs?
Yep.
Similar, okay.
I guess maybe like, how often do you expand them if you're looking to make them bigger?
Yeah, slower is always better. Always take your time with stuff. Yeah. I've had people come in that they had started with a normal earring size, and they go like right up to an 8 gauge, which is the size of my septum, in like one night. They're just like, yeah, you keep pushing and it goes through. I'm like, think about what you're doing. I had a girl come in, she ripped her earlobe in half. And I'm just like,
I have an imagination.
There's nothing I can do for you. Go. You need plastic surgery. Good luck for your insurance covering plastic surgery. So
That's why I never wore hoop earrings as a kid,
And
because
that is
I was
also-
scared into
Yep.
not wearing them.
it can get ripped out easily. There's been plenty of women that have come in that have reconstructive surgery of wearing heavy earrings, and they got that big slit there. Yeah.
Sorry, don't mean to be gross, but yeah, I was gonna say when I was in my teens, someone told me teenage boys on Halloween liked to
Yep.
run past and hook their. Ugh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the
and like
bigger-
ever since I heard that, my entire life I've like never worn hoops. I was like so scared.
Now I gotta put trigger warnings on this podcast. No, I didn't know. Anytime I think about a body,
That's just called being
body
a girl.
harm.
Yeah, stretching slower is always better. You always want to be clean. Oh my God, be clean,
Yeah.
because you're getting micro tears, little tiny things. You're stretching your skin. Yes, it's elastic and it can move, but you're on the microscopic level, which is always what you got to think about. Is you're getting little tiny micro tears that can ooze sebum, blood, serum, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, no, I could
shave a lot,
never-
and if you've ever seen like some of these science channels where they show a close up of what's happening when you shave, it's like I did not realize that you're
Just like how
scarring your
brutal
skin.
it is, yeah.
It's like it feels
Yeah.
so smooth, but
Yeah.
like in reality, it's like your skin's like.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, but I personally could never do plugs. Like I think I'm just like super sensitive to pain, and even the thought like
If you do
freaks
it
me
right,
out.
it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have there's so many people that are like, just gonna spit on it. Bleh.
Oh
and
my
I'm just like,
God.
So, is there a specific type of earlobe? Because I know there's the two different earlobe types where does the I don't have the, what are they called?
attached earlobes and unattached.
That, I mean, not that I'm ever to get one because I don't do that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, but like this would be significantly harder than ones that are detached.
Not necessarily.
Kind of the same thing.
It's all just fatty tissue.
So just works out in some way.
Yeah.
But would there be a limit to how much it would stretch or no?
No, there is this one guy called Bear. His goal, he's got 5 inches right now of earlobe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's like, my goal is just to wrap it around my head.
Ah.
Yeah. But that's the cool thing about skin is that it's one of your organs that regenerates.
Yeah.
So it can do that.
Like Wolverine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, always go slow. Make sure everything is clean. If you're going to do it at home, I always recommend going to a piercer, have them do it for you. Make sure it's a knowledgeable piercer that knows what they're doing, because there are a lot of hacks out there. However, I know in this state you have to be licensed or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah, we're back home. You could just open up a shop and go, I know what I'm doing, and which is horrifying.
Yeah, I think you have to have a license here.
Okay. Yeah, make sure that doesn't mean that they're not stupid though. But yeah, make sure they know what they're doing, research them. Just because they've been doing it a long time, there's people that I've met that have been doing it for 10 years that still don't know a lot about what they're doing, and that's scary.
So basically, find someone like Aleigha who could give you a recommendation.
Yeah, I don't know anyone around here really.
Gabby Gonzalez, someone who does art for Steam Powered Giraffe every once in a while, knows some places because she lived in Oceanside and she has some ones.
I know the Church of Steel, that guy. He's been doing it forever, and yeah. But yeah, if you are going to do it at home, I mean.
Don't.
Well, no,
Yeah.
you can. It's just you need to do it correctly. Just always use a water-based lubricant. If it hurts, that's your body telling you to stop.
Right.
And then go to a professional if you can't get it stretched up. You can blow out your ears, which
Yeah.
you rip it and it goes poof, all the way through it, and your skin's all
It
gross.
sounds like there's no
There's
just
no
take it
perfect.
slow
Yeah.
and talk to whoever's piercing your doing the work, because the same person asked again how much time between sizes. It doesn't sound like there's a
because if you
this
have
many days, just
if you have super
if it's comfortable.
flexible, stretchy skin, I know people that every
depends.
2 weeks we can pop one in.
Yeah.
There's other people that you got to wait a good 6 months, because when we go to stretch,
Right.
we are I can see the skin tearing and you're bleeding, but they're I want to stretch it, and it's
Yeah.
okay, but this is gonna suck.
So for whoever asked that question, there's no set amount of days between sizes. It's up
That's
to
a
the
good. That's a
individual.
good question to end the stream on.
Yeah.
I think my butt's a little numb.
Oh,
now.
all
Okay,
right.
all right.
So-
I could sit here all day.
I just.
Yeah.
I have. I don't know. It's not. I don't think it's my back. I think it's just because I'm thin, ish. On my butt. I'm sitting on bone basically.
Yeah.
So
That's your sit bones. That's what they call them. I don't know if that's if that's what everyone calls them, but in ballet, that's.
I don't care. I don't
Your
care. I
sit
don't
bone.
care too much for sitting. Sitting's a thing of the past. I do it for podcasts, just for you viewers and
Aw.
listeners. No, I sit on planes too for shows. But I don't own any chairs in like my workspaces. Everything's standing. Yeah, this was a very interesting podcast. Thanks for.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll maybe have you on in the future.
Yeah,
Yes.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was great.
I get to ramble on. It's great.
All right, so now I have to do.
I
We
learned
have to
so
do the
much.
awkward. I'll play us out.
Hold that up.
I'll order some push pins on Amazon.
Oh, look.
We got it.
It's all black now.
Huzzah.
Let's. I'm gonna put this up to a 5th fret so it makes it sound all high and.
Okay. I'm just going to
And
hold
we'll
this
play
up.
us
As your
out.
arm just like bends out of socket.
Yep, I'm good.
You can just no.
So as far as feedback goes, let us know how if you notice a difference with the sound blankets up because
Yes.
it takes an extra
Okay, I'm not going to do
few
that.
minutes to set up for the stream. But if the sound quality is a little better because there's less reflections, then great. If you don't notice a difference, I do think it looks better for the video though. Because before we had white walls and it's kind of overblown, but this is like we get more detail in all of us. Okay.
Peace out.
Okay, that's. It's a podcast from Steam Powered Giraffe. It's the Bennettarium. We had lots of fun talking about biotechnology and the piercings on the Bennettarium. Bunny is out of town and Chelsea filled in on the Bennettarium. Okay, well.
I hit my mic.
We'll find. Next time I'll try to find a new song because that one's like the go-to now because we just made it up with Bunny that one time.
Well, this was fun.
Now I have to get up and do the infamous go turn everything off.
There's no way of turning it all off from your seat,
I'm the controller for the podcast and the audio engineer and the videographer and everything. It all works, right? It surprisingly enough after the 5th time.
Biotech piercings. I think that's a good title for the podcast. Sorry.
Ooh, that'd be a cool.
Is that what this one's going to be called?
I can't claim that. It's
Biotech?
someone mentioned it in the comments.
Biotech piercings?
Biotech piercings.
It's kind of misleading.
Yeah.
But I could say biotech and piercings.
Biotech.
But it would be cool.
Piercing.
But see,
That'd be
last
a
time we
cool
had a funny
shop
thing. We
name.
had lunch machine.
I like the idea of like
We'll
taking.
call this one lunch machine 2.
I like the idea of taking like the themes of the show
Well, a
and
lot of
like
podcasts do that. Harmontown does that all the
Yeah,
time. They take like
that's-
a joke or like someone said something funny, ha ha ha. But this is more informative podcast. I'm sure there was some jokes, but to be fair, I'm not very funny in person.
this was very fun. I enjoyed this one.
Awesome.
Okay, well, it'll probably be biotech piercings. Biotech piercings. Okay, I'm gonna get up and.
Be stiff.
So
Okay.
you can just say goodbye while
Thanks,
I
everyone.
turn off the stream.
Join us next week, November 20th, Sunday, 3 p.m. probably, if you're tuning into the live stream. We'll have David, myself, and Camille Penyak with us.
And potentially Bunny.
And potentially Bunny. I wasn't going to say that, but we don't know if she'll be back in town yet. Yes, and I'm sure we'll talk about VR again. No, I'll try and talk about something else.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Toodles.